Coming at you like a can of twisted tea.
Yeah, you got yours, buddy.
It is The Upgrade. And I know Len liked that one.
That's a good one.
It's The Upgrade. This is the last show of 2020. So it is our chance to bitch and complain about a bunch of shit and say fuck off to this shitty, stupid year.
But 2021 ain't going to be much fucking better, bro.
Oh, no. I don't.
It's just more of the same.
I have very low expectations. How's things, Mr. Carmichael?
Things have been better. Last week we didn't have an episode because there was just some family stuff going on for me, and it's continued through the week and culminated in my mom being maimed by a dog yesterday. So that's just been, it's like death in the family, all the stuff you got to deal with leading up to it, and plus it's Christmas, and then you got Christmas that you got to deal with, and like the feelings of not having somebody around that you expected to be there because just a week prior they were. There's just like all that stuff, and then you add on top of that the ER visit and now subsequent potential surgery. It's it's been a week, so otherwise I'm good.
That, and you got the weirdness of like holidays that aren't really holidays because
2020 is
family. I mean, I don't know about your family, but my family didn't do anything.
The way it works is like we have a bubble of people that have consistently stayed in touch throughout this whole Corona thing.
Okay.
And for the most part, none of us go anywhere crazy or encounter anything crazy. And we all take our temperature and, keep an eye on symptoms and whatever. And nobody's had any symptoms and nobody's had any direct contact with people that have had it. So, we had a certain section of people that were either eating with us or had food deliveries directly from me. Right. I smoked a brisket, I smoked a turkey, and I smoked a ham. And then I also made mac and cheese and mashed potatoes and a veggie. And I just sent out a spread to like my grandmother, uncle, my mom, and then some other food went to another household and some food went to another household. I dropped some off to Tony, who is a listener of the show. Good friend of mine for many years, so I knew he was at home alone for Christmas. I had stopped by as food clause and dropped off some food to him, a big actual tray of like real ass macaroni and cheese. Like I pulled
That's
out
awesome.
No stops. It's fucking delicious. I'll tell you. I'm not trying to pull anybody's leg, but I make some fucking delicious mac and cheese.
He's not.
Yeah. Well, by the way,
and mind you, I'm still sitting here with an empty fork and knife. So,
Well, you moved, son. You moved south. You're 40 minutes south now, and you can't get a delivery 40 minutes south. You put your ass back up here in the Trenton area, I will gladly drop some mac and cheese on your door. So we got a guest this week.
I was going to say, for those of you wondering, we are going out the way we came in. Our friend Andy here was our guest on our very first episode, and he's also been a guest on an episode or two after that. So we decided to invite him back to sign off on this fucking shitty year.
You know
What's
what?
up, Andy?
We had him on for that Van Halen thing. We never even dropped. It's just sitting in the fucking till.
That is true. We did do we were going to make it 2 episodes. We
ended up talking 5 hours on Van Halen, and we just never dropped it.
We went through the whole catalog, and then we just never dropped it, which I don't know, maybe for the best because we kind of shit on most of the catalog.
Oh no, the second half of the catalog.
Well, yeah, we definitely shit on the second half of the catalog. So it's like, yeah, it's a tribute, but
it is what it is.
We're gonna tell you how bad the second half of your output was. Sorry, guy.
It is what it is.
I don't know. Maybe that'll be a lost episode one of these days.
Maybe we'll drop it. But yeah, thanks for coming back, Andy. Welcome.
Of course. Yep.
So what's been going on in your world, bud? What's new?
Nothing.
What did you do for the holidays? I mean, I know that you are Jewish and you do the Hanukkah thing, but do you guys haven't transferred into doing like Christmas? Because your mom's Jewish too, so she's never done specifically Christmas, and
nope.
Now you have your two kids. Obviously bought them some presents, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, they didn't. I didn't even get to see them on Christmas. They came over here on Sunday.
Okay.
So we did the whole present thing, and yeah, that was about the extent of my Christmasing.
You know what? You're not missing anything.
No.
Christmas is garbage end to end in general, but sometimes you just got to suck it up and do it. So I just do it.
Yeah, well, I had very little. The holidays are quiet pre-COVID, and now during COVID, it's super quiet. So,
right,
which is just fine. Leave me the F alone, please.
That's exactly my sentiment for everything in the world, is just leave me the fuck alone. I wish people would just leave me alone most of the time.
I'd be a little more excited about it if I was still getting toys and shit.
Right. Yeah, I mean...
Now it's just money out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
not even just that, because like now my kids are older, so it's not like they really give a shit either, so it's like... when they were small, it's like, okay, let's get a bunch of toys so that I can play with them. Yeah, I'll build that for you, no problem.
There's now a Nintendo Switch in my house, and it's been fun so far, but I can already foresee that it's going to be a fucking war zone.
Well, you got it kind of easy because you've only got one.
Yeah. But
if you had more than one, the war zone would be in full effect.
But there's also the older one.
Oh, that's true. I forget about that.
And that's the war zone.
Yeah. So that's a problem.
Yeah. But hey, it is what it is. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah. When I first got a Nintendo Switch for my guys, it was it's pretty ugly.
It was a full-on wrestling match. It had some furniture moving up in there.
Yeah, I mean, I had to get a referee shirt and
a whistle. Did you get a whistle?
No, but I there were requests for barbed wire, but I said no.
TLC.
Said not until you're older.
No, when I was talking to my kids tonight, my son, who's 5, was like trying to strangle my daughter, who's 3, in a blanket. I'm like, what is going on here? It's like obviously they don't have cell phones, so my ex is holding the phone, so they're trying to talk to me, and then they're like ducking out to like hit each other, and I'm like, all right, this is not going to last long. These kids need to go to bed.
It's time.
I'm like, and I was impressed because like my daughter's like half the size of my son, and she's putting up a hell of a fight. I'm like, he's going to be in a big tree. He's going to be in a world of hurt in a couple of years.
Oh, trust me, I know about that. I wasn't, when I used to live with my kids, I wasn't allowed to watch wrestling. Their mother called me one time. My youngest one was still really small. She was barely starting to walk, but already she was jumping off the bed and clotheslining and putting her big brother in headlocks.
Nice.
And she called me one day and she's like, listen, you can't watch wrestling in the house anymore. And I'm like, oh no, what happened? And she's like, the little one jumped off the bed and clotheslined the boy.
Broke out a Stone Cold Stunner.
And like did a super fly. So like you gotta you got to not put it on until they go to sleep. And I was like, oh, great.
I got to tell you though, back in the day when it was me and my niece and then my next door neighbors, which they were both like right around my age, we would just like everybody was within like a 4-year range. We would have all out wrestling matches in Dad's living room. I was diving off the couch, off the top stairs. I mean, like anything to make it feel like we were actually in a real wrestling ring. Dude, and then, of course, somebody starts crying.
Me and my brother used to beat the piss out of each other. Superfly off the dresser. We had bunk beds. One of us jumping off the top bunk. That's how I learned that if you do it right, that figure 4 really fucking hurts.
Yes,
that shit hurts.
Oh man, we figured that out the hard way.
There are a few things about wrestling that are real. That is real.
That's definitely one of them for sure. Because oh man, did we put that to the test?
A well-applied full Nelson also really hurts.
Oh yeah, there's a few like that. The Cobra Clutch.
Yeah, the Cobra Clutch is rough.
Camel Clutch, if you crank it, that shit hurts.
The score, what is it? The one that that Bret Hart did. That one hurts too.
Oh, sharpshooter.
Yeah, the sharpshooter.
Oh yeah.
If you get that in deep, whoo, my back.
There's a lot of those, like, you know, and I'm not saying it just because I'm a wrestling fan, but like, you people that think wrestling is fake, let me put some of that shit on you and see how you like it.
No, thank you.
Because you will not like it. I speak from experience. Before I was even a teenager, those lessons were already learned. Let me tell you.
Just a splash. Like you're laying on the bed and your brother comes running in the room, full speed. Blam! You're like, yo, the bed is done.
Man, by the time I was like 12, I had two twin beds in my bedroom, and by the time I was like 11 or 12, neither of the beds had frames on them anymore. They were just box mattresses on the floor because like they had already been broken. Like there was no like for me like jumping from one bed to the other, you know. It's like, forget this, man.
Yep. So like back in the day, I used to go and sleep over Andy's house. I probably started going around 11, 12 years old to actually like have full on sleepovers. And I mean, we would be in there playing basketball, playing football in the room, wrestling, like whatever.
My room was big though.
Yeah, dude, your room was as big as your parents' like bedroom. You had another full like it was insane how big your bedroom was. And I mean, we tore that bedroom up.
Oh God! Simpler times.
Oh yeah, learning some hard lessons from Sergeant Slaughter, the Iron Sheik.
I also learned there that soldering irons do actually burn you.
Oh,
yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
And I have skirted every piece of Ohm's law in building various speaker systems. I mean, like we broke every rule.
Yes, we did.
But I put a lot of that information to work now. I was just soldering some shit the other day, and I'm like sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, if I hadn't learned this 25 years ago when I shouldn't have had any reason to be in fucking, not even 25, 30 years ago when I was going into fucking Radio Shack in the late 80s,
riding our bikes to Radio Shack, and then soldering like 3 feet over the soldering iron, like smelling all that,
dude,
whatever that carcinogen was that came off the soldering iron. That was like
lead and resin.
Yeah, that is so crazy because up here I did the exact same thing. Same thing.
See, what you got to remember.
Stupid does.
What you got to remember is there was no internet in the late 80s, early 90s.
You had to learn it the hard way.
You just had to take a flyer, bro. You had to take a chance.
Yeah.
And If you weren't willing to die for it, you weren't going to get anything done.
And and soldering irons are no joke. There's like half the damn thing will burn you.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I have a burn on the back of my hand because I was soldering some shit in my kitchen.
I was gonna say, I'm sure somewhere very faded, I still have some burns from the.
I burned the shit out of myself. But I'm a goddamn man, and I continued to finish until I was done, and then I handled my burn.
Man up.
Man up.
Sack up, you bitch.
Well, speaking of sacking up.
Sure.
What kind of asshole sacks up in a fucking RV and blows up in a sleep town in Nashville?
I'd love to know.
I mean,
I want to know what's going on and what was going on. I want to know.
The heavy rumor is that he was one of these 5G assholes.
Really?
That's the rumor flying around. And I mean, based on the fact that he was hiding out, he parked that RV out in front of the AT&T building in downtown Nashville, kind of feeds into that theory.
Yeah, well, what doesn't feed into the theory is they found his ass baked at the bottom. Like, what the... What?
Well, clearly he didn't listen to his own fucking messages because he had messages saying...
Evacuate.
Danger, Will Robinson.
You gotta be a stupid son of a bitch to blow your own ass up. I mean, I know he's intending to, but still, like, what fun is that? You can't, like, watch on the news, like, from your house after you caused this whole mess. Stupid.
Well, listen, if he's one of these 5G guys, then what is
no loss.
We're not missing
good riddance.
No loss. It's, he could have packed the van with QAnon people too.
Well, I was going to say, what's worse than that is people are talking about the fact that his middle initial is Q.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And, like, some fucking crackpots are like, oh, Q, it's a QAnon thing. Like,
well, there's only 26 letters in the goddamn alphabet. It's got to be one of them.
Like, we just go back in time and put those people in the RV.
All of them. Can we just pack them all in?
Everyone, just please.
That's a big ass RV. That's a big explosion.
I know that there's almost zero chance that at this point any QAnon people would be listening to our show because we've already run them out of here months and months and months ago. But
if you are new to this show, this is your first time listening, and you are a QAnon person, you are not going to have a good time
at all. You're welcome to stay, listen along.
I mean,
but
if you want to stay, it's your RV. But
no, there's gravity in this here world,
Yeah, the rumor is that he's a QAnon guy, not a QAnon guy, 5G guy.
Same thing. Same fucking thing.
Listen.
Another wacky conspiracy that, led you to blow yourself up.
Len and I were talking about this off air the other day, and we've mentioned it on previous episodes. Like, you remember when, like, the Loch Ness Monster was, like, a conspiracy theory?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that shit is so tame now compared to what we got. Like, big Bermuda Triangle? Okay, boomer. Like, we upgraded our shit now. We got QAnon.
We got
we got Antifa,
baby pedophile, rings and shit.
Yeah, we got Pizzagate.
Pizzagate. Yeah. Oh God.
Like, fuck your fucking Bigfoot. UFOs. That shit is for chumps.
At this point, Bigfoot is plausible.
Bigfoot is like, yo, this is why I've been hiding all this time.
He's like, yo, I wanted to get away from y'all. Y'all crazy.
Bigfoot could be waiting your table at Chi-Chi's, you never know.
Yo, I miss Chi-Chi's.
I've said it before. I firmly believe the Marvel Comics alien thing, which is that there's alien races out there and they don't want nothing to do with us because we're fucking crazy.
They're like, nah, That's the wrong spot right there.
No, they're like, yo, just leave them alone because we don't want to fuck with them.
They lost it.
They're not to be fucked with. and listen, there's proof of that theory because a lot of the UFO activity centers around nuclear activity. So they see we got the nukes and they're like, yo, just leave them dudes be.
Leave them alone.
Leave them be. Like we can't really fuck with them right now.
They're gonna kill themselves They're gonna kill themselves all alone. Leave them alone. They'll die.
Yeah, they're gonna blow us up, and then they're gonna find our planet, and they're gonna blow that up too. So let's just go home.
Invisibility cloak on.
Yeah, turn the stealth on, and let's get back home before they find out we're here.
So I've actually been watching Mandalorian.
Oh yeah.
Based on you guys' chatter, or at least Gary's chatter. Andy, have you been watching? Have you seen it?
I have not. I have. I do not have. I do not have the right access to do so at the moment. So, I will eventually cave, but right now I'm on CBS All Access right now. So.
Right.
What are you watching on there?
Well, I was watching Picard. That was the reason why I got there to begin with. Because
did you like it?
Bits and pieces. I thought it could have been better.
Okay, I didn't hate it. It wasn't my favorite thing. Like,
nope.
I like Star Trek. I'm not as deep into it as I am with Star Wars, but I do enjoy it. And I know a lot of people didn't like that show, and I know there are a lot of people that do not like Star Trek Discovery.
Well, I don't like Star Trek Discovery at all.
Discovery I like.
No, I'm not a fan.
But no. I know I am in the minority there.
I think the last... I'm going to date myself here. The last full-run alternate Star Trek show that I liked... Probably that I really had an affinity for was Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, I watched it sometimes, but I wasn't deep into it.
Nothing past that. I didn't like Voyager. I didn't like the reboot of Enterprise. I had wanted nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
But Deep Space Nine was and Next Gen. Those were I didn't like old Star Trek at all. Hated it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, the original had nothing to do with that, but Next Gen, like Deep Space Nine, that like mid '80s era Trek, that was my window.
So I'm not a Star Trek fan at all, like 0%. I legitimately hate it. Mm-hmm. So I don't have anything to say about it. But Star Wars has always been in my list of things that I will rock out with. Oh yeah. And I'm not gonna give you any spoilers away that you probably haven't already heard, but I'm on season 2 episode. I have 6, 7, and 8 left, so I'm like right down towards the end of what's been released.
Oh boy.
I'm gonna tell you, Andy, I was slow to start this show. Mm-hmm. Because I just had 1,000 other things going on in my life, and I just couldn't find the time to focus on it. But this is easily the best thing in the Star Wars canon since Empire for me. I'm not a huge Return of the Jedi. I hate the prequels. I've only seen one of the post original trilogy. I've only seen one of the other ones. I saw 7. I didn't see 8 or 9. And I know that Gary hates both of them, so I didn't even rush in. I did like Rogue One. I thought Rogue One was really good. Did you see that one?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I thought Rogue One was great, but Mandalorian
Did you see Solo?
I did not see Solo yet, but some people said they liked it. Some people said they didn't. I'll watch it eventually.
Well, Andy, what did you think of Solo?
I thought it was an interesting take. I wasn't particularly fond of the casting, but I liked the premise. I thought it could have been done better, but I didn't find it to be completely repulsive.
See, I liked it, and I think what really fucked it was The Last Jedi. I think the fact that it came out after The Last Jedi really ruined any chance that it had, because the hate for The Last Jedi was very strong.
Yeah.
And
I didn't think The Last Jedi was that bad.
I absolutely despised it.
Yeah.
I went with Glenn, my drummer, and when it was done, we just looked at each other and said, "What the fuck was that?" And I'm a diehard Star Wars fan from when I was 3 years old, when the first movie came out. I am absolute diehard, and I was just like, I never thought I would hate a Star Wars movie. I could not stand that movie. But I think coming out after that movie ruined Solo more than anything. But what are you going to do? Some people say that had nothing to do with it. They just didn't like the Solo movie, but I thought it was pretty good. Not my favorite.
Pretty good.
Not my favorite, but it was better than the prequels.
Ugh.
Well, almost anything is better than
not that says much, but
that was an abortion right there.
Yeah, I mean, Rogue One was great. Force Awakens was it's okay.
It was for me. Force Awakens was A New Hope, just kind of reimagined for a new. Like, I thought they were starting a whole new thing based on like the premise of, if you don't pay attention to history, it will repeat itself. And it was supposed to start like a new thing, and then when I found out that where they were headed with the next two, I couldn't bring myself to go watch them in the theater. I had too many things going on.
Yeah.
And looking back and based on other people's opinions, not even my own, but people that I trust, I'm like, I didn't really miss much by skipping them.
No, what I would say,
I think you should see them.
Yeah, I would see them just if you're a diehard, just to understand and be able to hang in conversation. But what I would say is The Last Jedi was a complete train wreck, and they knew it. So the third movie, they tried to cram like 2.5 movies worth
to try and fix.
To try and fix it,
and you can't fix it. It's too fucked up.
It's still a mess, but it's not as bad.
Right.
And I've described it on here before. It's like putting your favorite pet down. It's like at least they're out of their misery. Because now they've announced all these new shows that they're going to put out for Disney Plus, and even a new theatrical movie. And none of them have anything to do with the characters from the sequels.
Did you see that fucking George Lucas made a statement that he's thinking about pressing forward with his secondary trilogy?
Well,
or third trilogy or whatever, like as an aside to what already happened?
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of rumors going around that Disney is going to find a way to kind of retcon things and possibly erase the sequel trilogy. Which I thought, when I first heard it, was crazy, because I heard this back in the summer.
Right.
But then some of the announcements that they've made and some of the things that they've done and some of the things that seem like they're in the pipe are kind of feeding that theory, so I don't know now. It's kind of nuts. I thought it was way out there, but...
Well, I think if you spend $1 billion for a property like Lucasfilm and the entire universe, you have to expect them to monetize it, and they're going to have to monetize it with material. Well,
I think what happened, and if you look, there's tons of videos on YouTube talking about the facts and also a lot of theories. obviously they got completely off in the wrong direction with Star Wars. They went and what they wanted to do was duplicate the success of Marvel, but they went about it the completely wrong way. And if I can preach for a second, as a fan of all of this stuff, the thing that Marvel does right, that DC does not do right, and that Star Wars has not done right either, is you've got to respect the fan base. And the thing that comes with that more than anything else is that you have to respect the source material. With Marvel and DC, for instance, you know, Star Wars goes back to 1977.
Yep.
Marvel and DC, these characters go back to the 30s in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why these characters have been popular all of this time. I mean, for fuck's sake, you're talking about like Superman and Captain America have been around over 80 years at this point, practically. I mean,
you gotta stick with your story in some way,
right? Because I hated Man of Steel, and part of the reason why I hated Man of Steel was because Superman was always the Boy Scout. He was always the goody two-shoes, sort of like Captain America was. And they had him just, at the end, he kills and he's just wrecking everything, and there's no regard for anybody, which is the total opposite of what Superman was, which was just one of the many problems that I had with that movie, but that's another story. Marvel has done so well because they respect the source material. They're not changing Captain America or Doctor Strange into something else. They're not trying to make everything dark like DC does.
Right.
And they're not trying to, they're not trying to bullshit, and they're not about an agenda, which is what a lot of people accuse Star Wars of being, where, there's too much identity politics, catering to all this social justice warrior bullshit. Do I agree with that? Not necessarily, but obviously, they've got a problem because a lot of people do see it that way.
Well, Star Wars, the problem with the Star Wars universe is that the Star Wars universe is much narrower.
Right.
There isn't, unless you really want to take a walk into the books, like, there just isn't that much material. So anything that's happening now, like The Mandalorian, is new stuff. It's not, there isn't, all this original source material, aside from the books, has already been covered.
Well,
and are volumes of books. Like, I mean, there was only one series of books that I read, and that was the Timothy Zahn books.
Right, which I have to say, because I love those books, and that was the beginning of what they called the expanded universe, which when Disney took over, they kind of put all that stuff to the side. But they've slowly been working pieces of that into the new canon, which I think is really cool.
Yes. But,
and I won't say too much because since you guys haven't watched or haven't finished The Mandalorian, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm going to say that involves that. They respect the source material. They're putting things in for the fans.
Right.
One of the things that a lot of people didn't like about the sequels is that, they were treading new ground, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Nope.
But it's funny because if you've seen the movies, Kylo Ren, Adam Driver's character, at one point says, "Let the past die, kill it if you have to," which just sums up the whole problem with the whole fucking thing. Because people don't want new shit. Like, you put a couple of the classic characters in there, but The Mandalorian proves it. And Len, at least you've seen a good portion of it if you haven't finished it already.
Yeah, I'm up. I have 3 episodes left, 6, 7, and 8 of the last season.
They bring in...
Dude, they brought in, like, when... So I knew who they... So I'm not going to tell this because I don't want to ruin it for Andy. But when they ended up back on that planet, and I saw him walking through the sand dunes, and I was looking at the uniform in which the guy had that he shouldn't have had, I was like, oh, I know whose that is.
Mm-hmm.
I put it together real quick. So then when they tied it all up for me, I was like, man, that was good.
Right. But that's the thing. If you look, they did this sequel trilogy, and they basically brought in a bunch of the old characters and then killed most of them off.
Right. Well, yeah, when they killed Han off, I was so upset.
Right. But it just didn't feel right. And the problem is, and there's a story to this which, funny enough, involves Star Trek also. J.J. Abrams came in to do Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, you like Star Trek. Did you see the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies?
Yes.
I saw one of them.
I thought they were visually stunning, but a little weak on the story side.
Right.
I mean, they were well done, like as far as like special effects and all the bells and whistles to really lure in the non-story people. It was like a good popcorn flick, but I think that just the stories, the J.J. Abrams material was a little hollow.
Right. I mean, I kind of agree with you. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't my favorite.
Correct.
But here's the story that I found out about what happened with Star Trek and how it relates to Star Wars, because J.J. Abrams eventually came over and did the Star Wars movies. One of the things that happened was there was a big argument with Paramount, who owns Star Trek, about marketing, because Abrams wanted to do his trilogy and he wanted the marketing for that to be front and center, and Paramount was like, listen, all of our classic shit is still selling like crazy, so we don't want to push that shit out. Like, you can't just get rid of all that stuff. And Paramount put their foot down about that, and J.J. Abrams was tight about it. So one of the things that happened when he stepped over to do The Force Awakens was in talking with Kathleen Kennedy, who ran Lucasfilm post Disney. It was the whole idea of, okay, we want to do our marketing and we're going to push all that other shit to the side. Since Paramount wouldn't let him do it with Star Trek, he pushed Kathleen Kennedy to do that with Star Wars, and she went for it. So that's why, if you look at the theme park, the Disney theme park Star Wars stuff, it's all about the new trilogy, the sequel trilogy. There's no classic stuff there.
None.
Right. So that was all part of that plan, that whole marketing idea that came from J.J. Abrams, really. And now what Disney is finding out, because by the time the sequel trilogy was done, everybody was just kind of like, whatever. Because people were sore because it wasn't very good. Because if you're a Star Wars fan, like I said about respecting the source material, there's people who are fans of Star Wars, there's a certain type of storytelling that goes on. And when you tease things in the first movie, like connections with different people, like who are Rey's parents and who is Snoke and all these things, and then you get to the second movie and you're like, yeah, none of that shit matters.
Right. It makes it fall flat.
And on top of that, I have a lot of issues just with the story in general, not even from a Star Wars point of view, but just from taking writing classes in high school and stuff like that. Like, they're just poorly written. Like, if you're writing a trilogy...
We've already gone over the fact that I haven't seen the second two of this final trilogy, but they never actually tie up who Rey is related to?
In the third movie, they do.
Okay.
Which is the scramble, because in the second movie, it's just like...
They just pass over it?
Part of the problem with the second movie also... Well, no, they don't pass over it. Kylo Ren says, yeah, your parents were nobodies. Like, you think your parents were something, they were nobodies. And everybody was just like, what the fuck? And they kill off characters. It's like imagine you've got a big trilogy and you've got like your big characters, your big villains and stuff, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of the second movie, they knock it off. It's like, well, now where are we going? But that's what I mean about it being bad storytelling, because if you got a trilogy of movies, you plant seeds. This is basic storytelling 101. Like these are things I learned in writing classes. You tell a story over time, whether it's a 500-page book or a trilogy of movies, whatever it is, you plant seeds early on, and those seeds grow into something that's part of your story later. Mm-hmm. So imagine you plant these seeds, and then somebody just, as they're starting to grow, somebody just digs them up and fucking throws them in the street. That's pretty much what The Last Jedi did with a lot of these plot points. And if you're a Star Wars fan, if you're a longtime Star Wars fan, there was the whole thing of like, well, you know, for people like us, because the prequels kind of ruined this, but for people our age, I Am Your Father was like the mind blower. Like that shit changed people's lives who were our age. Like that was just the holy shit moment.
Right.
For our age group. So when you have moments like that define whole generations, but then you have a story like this where they plant these things and okay, maybe it's not going to have the same effect, but it's going to have something, right? And then you're like, oh, no, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Not important.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, like, and then you wonder why people don't like it. So now you got that sequel thing, which, like I said, a lot of that was the Kathleen Kennedy stuff where, like, you know, let go of the past. But people want the past.
That's right.
So, like, think of it this way. You got the Galaxy's Edge theme parks. You got them in California and Florida. And they're all based on the sequel trilogy. Mm-hmm. Okay? Look at The Mandalorian. Even if you haven't finished it, you see what a difference it gets as far as fans.
Oh, yeah. Well, but they're touching on everything that I already know and giving me a new angle on that touch.
Right. And they're using classic content
right to
build a new story. That doesn't sound like, sometimes the stuff feels forced because in episode 9, the Emperor comes back. Mm. I mean, at this point, listen, it's a spoiler, but who knows when you're ever going to watch it. But it's probably spoiled for you by now anyway. The Emperor comes back, which kind of negates the whole point of like Darth Vader's redemption in Jedi. Because like, oh, okay, he killed him, but oh, he's back. But right. Also, it just felt forced. It's like, okay, they fucked up that middle one, so now this is their way of trying to give us something.
Right.
And it all felt very forced and very weak. But look at the reception that The Mandalorian gets, because I haven't heard a single fan, especially once you watch the finale, I haven't heard a single fan say a bad thing about this show. And as a matter of fact, most fans, when they watched the finale, were in tears because of how happy they were. Because to me, I described it much like Avengers Endgame was a thank you to fans that have been with Marvel from the beginning. It was enjoyable either way, but if you were a fan watching all of those movies, there were so many little things that paid off in that movie that it's like a thank you. It shows you that they appreciate you as a fan and
sticking with the whole product.
Yeah, we want you to be happy. It's like what we talk about with wrestling, where like Vince McMahon does shit even though people hate it.
Yeah,
and
because he don't give a shit.
George Lucas was guilty of that also, and I think he's kind of learned his lesson a bit with the prequel movies. But it's the idea of you give the fans what they want. You're telling a new story, so it doesn't get stale. It's not just like you're remaking A New Hope, like what The Force Awakens was. You're telling new stories, but you're tying in so much stuff, and you're throwing in these little Easter eggs, and the fans love it. So imagine if you took those theme parks and you put in classic content instead. Think of how much fucking money they would make. And
I have a side note story about going to see The Force Awakens.
Okay.
So I went to the movies, and I'm sitting in the theater. It's me, Tony, Megan, and Brienne. We're all sitting in a row, and behind me is a mother, a father, and a child. And I'm talking a child that's probably like 4, maybe 5. And as the movie's going on, he's getting more and more restless. And it turns out he's also autistic. And I don't give a shit that you have an autistic kid. It's like, whatever, that's normal course of business these days. People have kids that have problems. But this kid starts kicking my chair and then kicks me in the head, then kicks Brienne in the head. So I turn around, I stand up in the middle of the movie, full volume, and I mean, you both know me. I normally talk pretty loud, but I was talking full volume, and I basically said, I turned around and I said, if you don't get this kid to stop fucking kicking me, I'm throwing both of you down the goddamn fucking stairs. And he got all indignant, and I was like, do you want to go outside? Do you want to go outside? Because we can go outside right now.
You said that to the kid?
No, I think you're bad. And
that was a perfect setup. I couldn't help myself.
And his wife and him were like trying to yell at me, and I'm like, I'm not fucking with you right now. Let's go. And he was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go outside by myself. Goodbye. And he just dragged his whole family, and out they went. And I just sat down, and I'm just like, now I was totally out of the movie for like a good 10 minutes because I was seething in anger.
Oh, man.
And you know, everybody else around me is like slunk down in their chairs because they can't believe I would do something like that. And I'm like, you clearly don't know who you're talking about right now, because like, I'm not a fighter. We know that I'm not a fighter, but I'm not trying to sit there and pay good money to be kicked by some small child who can't sit still. I was like, you know that he's autistic and he can't sit through a whole movie. This is an adult movie. Keep him home.
Oh my God.
It's like, that just means that y'all can't go to the movies.
Right.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
get a babysitter, bro.
Yeah.
Get a babysitter. Or sit at the front of the theater where you're not going to fuck with anybody.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, sit. I mean, I'm sure.
I was in the middle of the theater.
Yeah, theater was probably packed.
Where you want to be if you're watching a movie you care about.
Yep. And I mean, I was going to toss this dude.
Yeah.
So do you really want to get like drugged down the aisle for your 4-year-old
No, I wasn't
kid?
dragging. I was already at that rage point that we were talking about that earlier before we cut the camera on, and I literally would have fucking press slammed him straight down the goddamn stairs.
I mean, don't fuck with me with Star Wars movie, boy.
Right. I mean, like,
Well,
there are certain things that I just can't be disturbed during.
No,
and
that's not-
it's not like I'm at, like, I don't know, some random comedy movie where everybody's laughing and partying and it doesn't fucking matter. Like, I'm in
This is
the
business.
movie. I am in the movie. I am part of this movie, and now I'm getting kicked. You're lucky I didn't pull my blaster out.
Whoa. You're gonna get us canceled.
All right.
Yeah, no, don't fuck with me. Fucking Star Wars is religion. Don't be fucking around.
So,
It's like kicking me in church. Hell, man.
So to transition here a little bit, what about that guy who pulled his blaster out at the bowling alley?
I mean, I don't know all the details of that story, but I do know the guy was active military.
Which is just ridiculous.
Which makes it worse.
Yeah, which is just bizarre on many levels.
And, like, he's 37 years old, so he's not even young. He's an older guy. And he's just blowing people away in a bowling alley. Like, what the fuck
shit.
is wrong with your life?
Dude, Dude was a Green Beret.
That's what I'm saying. And he shot teenagers. And it's just like, looking at this, like, what was going on in your mind that was like, yo, I had to just shoot all these people at the fucking bowling alley?
Maybe they were kicking the back of his chair.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe he was about to toss that 12th strike on that 300, and they walked up behind him and slapped his hand while he was going to throw the ball.
Oh.
That was my last chance. Pop, pop, pop. Like, what's going on
Sore
here?
loser.
You gonna have to die.
I mean, all right, so me and Andy have spent a lot of time in bowling alleys over the last 30 years.
Oh, my God. By the way, I'm catching up on this. 3 unidentified men were killed who were 73, 69, and 65.
Oh, man.
62-year-old man in critical condition after being shot multiple times. He shot a 14-year-old in the face and a 16-year-old in the shoulder.
I mean, all right, he's a Green Beret, so he's got a good shot. You know that right off.
Yeah, I mean, that's
there's nothing that has ever happened in a bowling alley in all the years of me going to a bowling alley that will require a shootout.
I don't think I've ever even seen a fight at a bowling alley. Granted,
no, I've seen a fight.
Yeah, I haven't been at a bowling alley nearly as much as you guys, but I don't.
The fights tend to be over the damn near lot lizards that hang out at the fucking bowling alley. It's just like some stupid like BS around relationships, or it's specifically about money.
Right.
But
yeah, this guy is a Florida resident, was assigned to an Air Force base in Florida, but was on leave at the time of the shooting, which was in Rockford, Illinois.
We're in a fucking pandemic, and technically we should all still be under quarantine.
Well,
and everybody's out here bowling like nothing's fucking wrong, and
no.
shooting each other.
Let me correct you as I read this. The bowling alley and its bar were closed due to COVID.
What the fuck?
I would assume that the older people were employees because they mentioned that the 14 and 16-year-old victims were picking up food.
Okay.
At the time of the incident. So the place was closed.
Was this an argument over food?
I don't know, but honestly, that makes even less sense because, like, I could see him being a sore loser on a bowling game, but, like...
Nobody needs to get shot over a bowling alley cheeseburger.
Or was this a back bowling alley hustle, like, you know, knock on the side door, we'll let you in, and then, you know, we're shooting for money, and my man lost all his cheese and got mad about it. Maybe them 14 and 17-year-olds took his goddamn money.
I don't know. It's all very strange. It doesn't mention the other people. It just says that the bowling alley and the bar were closed due to COVID. The 14 and 16-year-old victims were picking up food at the time of the incident. So I'm assuming the older people were all employees.
Mm.
So it just doesn't make any sense. And honestly, I haven't seen
much about it since.
Anything else about it really, except that one of the victims I see here now, which one is it? One of them was a Vietnam vet.
Jesus. Made it back from Vietnam, get killed here for doing nothing.
Yeah, some stupid shit.
I mean, Andy and I both know about being a teenager hustling people for money at the bowling alley. I mean, so Gary, what you may not realize is that both of us, Andy was more of the clinically trained bowler of us, and I was more of the fluid, just can fucking do it because I can do it bowler, but we were pretty good, and especially if we were a team, it was like you could not beat us if we were on a team together.
Wow.
It was damn near impossible, and it didn't matter who our third or fourth members were. If the two of us were bowling, I was leading off and he was doing the cleanup in the final position in the lineup, and whoever was in the middle just happened to be in the middle. And I mean, we struck fear in all the old men's hearts when we rolled into the bowling alley week after week after week. We didn't even have to bowl half the time, and they would beat themselves, getting all worked up about beating the young guys because we were the team to beat. And I think, I don't know, what was it, 6 years in a row we were the champs?
Yes.
Something like that?
Yeah, something obscene. But it was always like, we were coming to the bowling alley, guys are drinking and whatever, and we're like I'm like bowling, we're like bowling in like men's leagues when we were like 16.
Yeah.
Got to get a ride to the bowling alley to go take old men's money.
I happened to live down the street, so I would walk down, and then Andy's dad would give me a ride home afterwards, so I didn't have to walk down the street in the middle of the night with a bunch of bowling balls. But I mean, literally it's a block and a half, but just for safety's sake. But again, we were in there tearing these old men's asses apart week after week, year after year. And I could see where maybe they had these 14 and 16-year-old kids might have been pretty damn good and took that dude's money. And maybe that's the fucking problem here.
Oh.
Or maybe it was just over a cheeseburger. What do we know?
Well, I'm reading more here, and it turns out that the bar had an outdoor space. So the bar was operating. And
but it's mad cold in fucking Chicago area.
I guess they had some heated setup or something.
We all been in a fucking tent. I mean, I guess the fucking cold hits different when you live out there. Because to me, every time I've been in Chicago, even in the like early April, April, May, it's too fucking cold to be just standing around.
I've only been there once, and I will say it was pretty brick when I was there.
Yeah, it was crazy cold. You were out there for the Rumble, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we played the Rumble, but I had also been out there to see a show at for Burning Fight, the book release or whatever, and
right.
They had a whole bunch of bands come back together for that. And I mean, that was the third week in April, just like the Rumble was like the second or third week in April.
Right.
And bro, even with the fucking sun going, it was brick cold.
Oh, that wind coming off the lake is
just insane.
Because we were over in the park by Cloudgate and by the Married with Children fountain.
Yeah, we did that too.
Yeah, and
there was still snow on the ground when we were there, like full on snow.
I believe it.
Yeah, we took a ride out to the fucking Shameless house.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were posing on the fucking stairs.
Yo, we ate lovely.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
Did you go to Kuma's when you were there?
No, we didn't go to Kuma's. We went to one of the fucking deep dish spots, but not Gino's. One of the other ones.
Oh yeah, we went to one of those.
It's okay.
I'm not down, but
I just have to think of it as not pizza.
Right.
It's just something else.
That'll definitely make you feel better about it, because I was just like, meh.
Right. You tell me it's pizza. That's not pizza.
You know about Kuma's though, right?
Oh yeah, I know all about Kuma's. They had a burger for you guys set up, right?
They had a Rumble burger.
Rumble burger, okay.
Because they do every year with the Rumble, they do some promo. We went to Kuma's 2.
Okay.
And we were chilling, and then it turns out, because it was the second night, because the Rumble was 2 nights. After, or maybe before, I don't remember. We went, and it was the Rumble 2 nights. Maybe it wasn't. I don't remember. No, it was definitely 2 nights. We went to Kuma's because the first night we ate at the spot at the Cobra Lounge, which is a great place.
That
in Chicago.
Food was good.
Oh yeah, great food. So we went to Kuma's 2. Turns out the cook was a Billy Club fan.
And he hooked it up?
He comes out, he's wearing one of our shirts. The shirts that we had made for that trip.
Right.
Because we had made Chin Music shirts. One shirt had Mike Tyson, and the other one had Muhammad Ali. And yeah, he comes out and he's wearing one of the Tyson shirts, I think. And wanted to take a picture with us and shit. Turned out he had taken the night off the night before so that he could come and see us play. So hooked us up with some good fucking food.
So I've been to Chicago 4 times in my life. One of them was with Andy. And we parked the van that we were in by Soldier Field. And we looked up and said, hey, Sears Tower ain't that fucking far. We can walk. Yo, this was the biggest mistake of my entire life in judging distance.
I was going to say, you guys...
That was
one of them.
You guys didn't really learn much about perspective now, did you?
No, did we? Well, no, I learned about perspective that day.
You learned that day?
Yeah, bro. That was like a 6-mile walk.
Oof.
Oh, no.
Shit.
But we ended up walking down and passing the Married with Children fountain. We passed the Bean. Yep. We went over and went up.
We saw all the sights.
Yeah, we saw it all. But by the time we got to Sears Tower...
Well, I hope you did on your 6-mile walk.
We were dead to the world. And then I get up to the top, and I hate heights. But I had to do it because Ferris Bueller is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I had to go up and put my head on the window and say, I think I see my dad down there. And then I was, basically ready to melt into a puddle of piss and shit from being scared of heights.
I used to be real bad with heights, but I've gotten better about it. I'm still a little rough with high open spaces, but that was all enclosed, right?
Yeah, it's all enclosed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're inside.
There's
no outside observation deck.
What do they call it? Was it called the tilt or something? Like the windows that tilt out?
No, they didn't have that when I was up there. I'm sure. I think they have it now, but fuck that.
That's what I'm 100%. Saying. Like I was joking around with the guys, like, yo, you want to do this shit? And like, nope.
So, have you been to Toronto before?
Once.
Did you go up to the top of the CN Tower?
No, we didn't have time.
Andy, were you with us when we went up there?
Yes.
Okay. So, I've been up in the CN Tower probably 6 times in my life at this point because
I think I've got 2 or 3 trips up there as well. So,
Toronto is my favorite city to go to. That's not LA or just somewhere I can just drive to.
Yeah, Toronto's cool.
I really actually quite like Toronto. It's like going to New York without all the garbage.
Such a clean city. Beautiful.
Yeah. It's like New York without the garbage part.
Yeah, I could see that.
But I can't fuck with when you're at the CN Tower. Like, so they have the outer loop that you can go on, and it's outside, but there's like a net, so you can't, like, you would have to really try to like throw yourself out of this thing. But then if you go inside, they have these like 8-foot by 8-foot windows in the floor that you can stand on and look down.
I've heard about that.
I just go look from like 5 feet away and my knees get weak. I'm like, yo, bro, I can't do this.
That would fuck me up.
I can't do it. And like, you say, hey, there might be a murderer in that room. I'm like, all right, so I'm going to just mosey the other way. But you tell me, hey, there's a hole in the floor, but it's got a glass covering on it. I'm like, stuck to the floor. I'm stuck to the floor 10 feet away. Like, I could get sucked out of here. I'm more scared of that than you telling me there's a murderer in the next room.
Well, there's a new thing in Manhattan called The Edge, which is in the Hudson Yards.
Okay.
And it's an observation deck, and they have an outdoor section, and it kind of sticks out from the building, and part of the...
It's all glass floor, right?
It has a part that has a glass floor that you could see through.
But it's also glass walls, too. It's got
glass walls.
It's just like a big glass block.
Yeah. But that floor thing, I was like, ooh, I don't know if I can fuck
No way, bro. No way. Or those observation decks that stick out around the rim at fucking the Grand Canyon. They go out.
Yeah, I've heard about.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't know.
What the fuck is wrong with people?
Like I said, the open spaces is where I kind of get bugged out.
Yo, I'm telling you right now, and listeners, don't take offense to this, but white people invented this shit because there is no way. No, I would have never.
I don't know about that because I have seen some shit in China.
Right.
It's along those lines. So I wouldn't just blame it on the white people. Because they got those bridges in China They
Wild shit.
got glass floor, and it's like, yo, fuck everything.
Yo, and I saw one video where they have a glass floor, and then they have it programmed to make it seem like it's shattering, and it makes people scramble.
I'm pretty sure that's in China too.
Yeah, I'm like, why would you do this? This is some bullshit.
But China also has that shit where you're like hiking on the side of a mountain, and holding a fucking chain and standing on like a 1 foot piece of wood.
I'm going to tell you right now, me and Andy traveled from LA. Andy, you can jump in on this story, but we got in the car in LA and we drove all the way up to Vancouver over the course of about a week. And we drove through the redwoods. But driving through the redwoods requires you to also drive on the side of some fucking mountains.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, bro, I didn't know I was getting myself into this. And you look to your right, because you're on the outside lane, and it's just
down.
Straight cliff down. I mean, you're seeing trees, and you're like, all right, these trees are really not this tree is I'm seeing the top of the tree, and the tree is hundreds of feet tall. This is fucked up right now.
And the trees are growing like sideways out of the mountain.
There's no railing.
No.
We were on some roads like that in Puerto Rico, and that shit was like, oh no, in the mountains of Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I can't fuck with that shit.
I'll tell
White
you.
knuckling it.
I'll tell you a crazy thing, and then we can go in a different direction. Did you ever go up in the Twin Towers?
Yes.
Yes, a long time ago.
Yeah. That shit really bugged me the fuck out.
Well, they sway.
Well, it's just the observation deck and the fact that, like, there's just a waist high.
Yeah.
It's like a pit. So it's not like you can jump off the edge or something, but just the fact, like, talking about me with high open spaces, like, that shit.
Yeah, I couldn't get anywhere near the edge.
I was up there for 10 seconds, and I was like, I was with my girlfriend at the time and her sister, and I was like, yo, I'll be downstairs. Pew!
Well, so did you guys... Heights don't bother you?
No.
That's weird, man.
Good for you.
Not at all.
They used to bother me a lot more. Like I said, I've gotten a lot better about it. It'll still fuck with me. Like, I went up in the Eiffel Tower, and I was cool, but, like...
That's not that high, though.
True, but it's still pretty high.
Yeah.
Yo, so have either of you gone to go, like back in the day, you could go, all right, so at one point you could go all the way to the top of the Statue of Liberty. And then they cut it off, and they were like, yo, nobody's going up here. And then they reopened it, and they were like, all right, everybody can go back up to the top, but you can't go up the arm. You can just go to the...
Yeah, no, the torch...
The crown.
The torch, I don't know if they ever... had the torch fully open.
I'm pretty sure there was a time where you could go to the torch, but
I have to look because I actually looked this up a while ago because I was talking to somebody about it, and I don't think if they did allow access, it was not in our lifetime.
Yeah, bro. So I'm just getting nervous right now thinking about this, but it was high school, senior year for me, so we're talking 93, 94-ish time, and they took us up to that whole area, not Staten Island, but Liberty Island and etc.
Battery Park. That's
right. So we're going, and they're like, all right, so our time to go up to the crown is whatever. So we're walking, and the first 3 levels is like, shoulder height walkway, and we get to the point where they're like, okay, now it's knee height, or maybe it's barely hip height, like walkways that are like just the size of you, one way up, one way down. I looked at it, I was like, nope, no, I gotta go. And I turned around and I made a beeline through people. I'm like, yo, I can't even do this right now because my hands are sweating right now just thinking about it, because I can't fuck with heights like that, and especially without feeling like secure, because my stupid ass would stumble and fall all the way down.
But this was going up to the crown or the torch?
Yeah,
because I went up once when I was a kid, and I don't remember.
I would have to crawl
anything that low.
I would have to be crawling to the point where I couldn't see that I was like gonna die.
Shit.
I remember being was the Skyline Tower by Niagara Falls?
Skyline Tower.
By the way, just to be clear, according to Wikipedia, the torch has been closed.
Skyline Towers.
Okay. Skyline, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. The torch has been closed to the public since 1916.
Okay.
It was damaged by an explosion in Jersey City.
And they just have never, it's been over 100 years, and they have never repaired it to the point where they felt safe letting people go.
They repaired it, and, they did the whole renovation of it years later.
But they chose not to reopen that section.
Well, from what I read somewhere else on this page, the access was only like a small ladder, so probably just based on safety concerns, they would have ended up closing it anyway.
Mm.
Like it's not... certainly not anything that's easily accessible. Yeah, July 30th, 1916, during World War I, German saboteurs set off an explosion in Jersey City. Statue sustained minor damage, mostly to the torch-bearing right arm. They repaired it, but the narrow ascent to the torch was closed for public safety reasons, and it has remained closed ever since.
I forgot all about the Skyline Tower.
Yeah, because I remember being at the Skyline Tower, and there was on the observation deck there was a glass floor, and I remember laying on the glass floor. Like you could just, somebody could take a picture from above you. But otherwise, I was just like laying on like a 6-foot piece of glass on the floor. So, like, heights were not an issue for me, but I remember laying on the floor in the Skyline Tower, like, looking down on Toronto, or Niagara, wherever the hell the Skyline Tower was, but I think it was Niagara.
Well, it's Niagara, but Toronto's not far.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we stopped in Niagara for a quick second on our way back from Toronto.
I've been to Niagara a few times. I enjoy Niagara. One of the last times I was there, I actually stayed in a hotel that we had a room that was like a condo room, so it was a 2-level room. So like the bottom floor was like the living room and the kitchen, and then you walk up the stairs, and then that's the bedroom and the bathroom, and the whole front of that hotel is all windows. So like you're walking down the fucking stairs, and you're like, if I fall, I'm going out the window, and I'm gonna fucking get sucked right into the goddamn falls.
Yeah, one thing that sucks about traveling with the band is that we don't get a lot of time to actually do cool shit. Like sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Like we were able to do the Eiffel Tower, and we've done some other stuff, but we stopped at Niagara Falls for like a minute. We didn't have time. We had to get back.
Mm-hmm. Well, when Breath of Silence went out, but way back in the day, we ended up in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which is like 40 minutes from Old Faithful. And we got there at we had 5 hours until the show. So we were like, fuck it, let's go up to Old Faithful. So we go up there. And that was just really awesome to catch something that I probably would never have any other reason to be near.
Yeah, that Wyoming's one of 5 states I've never been in.
I'm down to only a few states I haven't been in of the contiguous ones.
Yeah, you guys are way ahead of me. I got a long way to go. But we never did full on touring like I know you have. But I would say
honestly, a lot of my states catching was actually done with Andy. We used to just take trips. So what we would do is we would take trips to go to baseball games or Hall of Fames or whatever. Something would come up. I mean, our first trip, I was 16 turning 17. I was 16 and I was going to be 17 in November, and Andy had just turned 17, and our friend Tim was 18, and it was the year before they were going to close Detroit Stadium.
Old Tigers.
Tiger Stadium. So we were like, yo, let's go out and catch a game at Old Tiger Stadium. So we got in a car, and we literally drove 10 hours to fucking Detroit, and this is... Kids listening, this is before cell phones. This is before MapQuest.
No GPS.
We took a fucking a map and drove the fuck out there. When We were out there on a wing and a prayer in
we
a
were
fucking
in an 86 Cavalier with no air conditioning.
86 Cavalier, no air conditioning, and it could have broke down at any point, and we would have been totally fucked. But we did it.
We had no business being out there.
None at all. And this is, what was that, 92?
And that doesn't even tell you where we parked our car at Tiger Stadium.
Oh, God. It was fucking... I mean, so if you guys think that Detroit is bad now, take it back to the early 90s, right as it was falling apart, like through the 80s. So we were, like, right there before it hit, like, the full bottom. We pulled off the highway in this one section, and I was legit... Yeah, I legit thought we were going to die. I was like, there's no way we were getting out of this.
I don't know what gang these guys were from that parked our car, but we left our car with them.
Yep.
We left our car with them, and we came back, and then our car was like all parked in this lot, and these three guys go running out there, and they start slinging cars around this little lot. We probably paid like $20 to park it in, and they're slinging cars around, and they get our car out, and we give them some money, and they let us leave. But the hindsight being 2020, I would have never parked there today. Holy hell.
That's wild.
So it's like, it's in this section of Detroit that's called Corktown. So Descent...
Right off of Trumbull Avenue.
Yeah. Descent played the Corktown Tavern. Like, I guess it was 4.5 years ago now. We drove out to Detroit to play a show for Critter, and he had booked it at the Corktown Tavern. I'm standing there looking out the back window of the Corktown Tavern into the pit of what used to be Detroit Tiger Stadium.
Wow.
Because it backed up to the stadium. So I'm like literally right back in the scene where I was almost 30 years to the day later.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, I've been here before. This feels familiar. But everything around Corktown now is all built up. Like,
it's all redone.
Unless you go 3 blocks in either direction. Well, one direction, you end up 1 block and you're on the highway. But if you go 3 blocks in the neighborhood, it's shitty. But everything up to the actual Corktown Road, which runs to one of the casinos and straight downtown, everything close to it has been gentrified. I mean, they have like a barbecue restaurant and that vegan spot and this, that, and the other thing. And like people have come in and taken over the section that they deemed safe enough to take over. But you get
where the revitalization dollars are spent.
Yep. So it was just weird to be back in that location a few years ago.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Ooh, yikes.
Well, I will say this, talking about visiting crazy places, and then we can go in a different direction with this conversation. The craziest place that I ever got to visit was when I was on tour in Europe. We actually went to one of the Normandy beaches.
Oh, wow.
Which was pretty intense because they still had a bunch of the containers, that they had rolled onto the shore, still sitting there all these years later. And they had a little museum there that we went to look at, and just seeing that coastline and some of the stuff still there, and they had like a tank on the shoreline and some other stuff was pretty wild to see and to read about and experience. I forget which beach it was, whether it was Gold Beach or Juno Beach.
Omaha Beach.
I have to look it up. It was one of those, but it was pretty wild because this was, the first time we went to Europe was 2004, and we're walking around in this little town in France, and that was when, well, you're not a video game guy. I don't know if you remember the game Medal of Honor.
Yeah, I know the game. I've never played it, but I know what it is.
But if you play it, it's World War II, like one of the first ones, the one that I owned. It's like World War II, so you're running around shooting German soldiers in this little tiny French town, and we're walking on the streets, like cobblestone streets in this little French town. Looks exactly like Medal of Honor. And I'm just like, whoa, this is crazy. And because it was my first time in France, and just looking around and then going to the beach, and it was pretty intense. It's definitely an interesting experience.
I have been to Europe once. We went to Versailles, France.
Okay.
And it was very nice, but I would never go back. Not unless forced. Or not unless I was rich. Like, I didn't have enough time to really dig around, but I also don't have the complexion for nice treatment. Europe in general was
that's true.
like, I'm an American, number one, number two, I'm brown, so it's just like everybody was just giving me the stink eye at all turns. The only place I felt moderately comfortable was in Italy, and it's because I've spent enough time around Hispanic people of all kinds that I know what they're saying when they're saying it in Italian, and I can respond close enough that they don't get mad at me for fucking it up, because I'm close enough.
Yeah.
I went to Barcelona, and they only speak Catalan, and they don't like anything. They don't even like regular Spain Spanish. If you're not speaking Catalan, you're not speaking their language, and they fucking hate you. Yeah,
that's what I've heard. I've never been to Spain, but
I mean, we even had a fucking what was it, a taxi driver, and I just decided to speak English, and it was I might as well have spit on his fucking face for speaking English. But I'm like, yo, bro, I'm not gonna hit you with the fake Catalan accent, because I don't know what the fuck I'm saying right now, and that'll be even worse.
Well, that's the way I was always told that's the way France was too. And we ran into that a lot, especially the first time around. The second time we went, we toured with a band from Paris, so
made it a lot easier.
Yeah, that made it a lot easier. But even the first time when we went, our driver spoke French, so it wasn't terrible. But if we, like, I know Glenn and I went on a mission to get some food one time, and
it was
pretty much anywhere you go in Europe, you'll find, you sneeze and you'll find somebody that speaks English, but France, no.
Yeah, they're like, nah.
No, that's not true. They speak English, they just won't.
Well, I was actually just about to say that, because I learned that the second time we went, when we were with the band from Paris. They told us, they speak English, they don't want you to know that they speak, and we were like, wow, that's
a French thing.
Yeah, which just blew our minds, because
they're assholes.
Yeah,
they're assholes.
Yeah, so I mean, we had good experiences, and with the shows and stuff that we did, everybody was cool. But if we were dealing with regular citizens, like not hardcore kids, then could be kind of hit and miss.
So I'm riding on this bus. We were in Italy, and we had gone to this place where you could make your own pizza. And everybody on the bus, like on the tour, was able to make their own pizzas. So we're getting back on the tour bus, and we sit down, and I'm sitting in the front, because the front of the bus is the only place where I could get the knee room that I needed to like physically sit down and not be sitting sideways. So I'm sitting next to the tour guide. So the tour guide is sitting there talking to the dude driving the bus, and they're speaking in Italian, and I'm just listening, and I'm going back and forth. And I'm paying attention to everything they're saying. I'm picking up we'll call it every third word, but it's enough to put together the conversation.
Right.
And then she said something, and I started cackling in laughter, because she was just talking shit on one of the people at the back of the fucking bus. But nobody else on the bus could speak Italian at all. So like, and she turned to me, white as a ghost, and she goes, "You speak Italian?" I was like, "No, I speak Spanish a little bit, and I know what you said." And she's like, "What did I say?" And she's like, and I was like, "Well, you said the monkey back there put bananas on his fucking pizza, and it was really disgusting." And she went, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, I can't believe that you knew that." And I was like, "It's gross. You don't put bananas on pizza." So I agree with you completely. But
bananas on pizza?
Yeah, it was fucking gross, bro. I don't know. I
That'll
don't
get
know.
you arrested here.
Yeah.
That should definitely get you thrown off the bus, at least.
At that point, the driver and the tour guide had my full respect because I A, didn't like freak out on them, B, I called them right out.
Yeah, you called them right out, but then you were like, yo, you're right.
But you're right.
Bananas on pizza.
Yo, don't do that.
That's some fucking savage
That's some blasphemy.
That's some caveman shit. Who the fuck does that?
You know who does that? Somebody that would support Trump. That's who does that.
Wow. Talk about a segue. So it would not be a year-end episode without us talking about that big orange prick. I don't even know where to begin. This dude has just been a giant goddamn train wreck all year since this COVID shit started, especially.
Man, he's been a train wreck from the jump.
Well, I will say this. In preparation for tonight's show, I did go back and I did listen to a couple of early episodes that we did with Andy. And I will have to say, first of all, Andy, you were right on the money talking about Kamala Harris as VP, which you were on the record. I forget if you talked about it in the June show, but you definitely talked about it in the July show. And you called that, and you were absolutely right. But in general, in listening to these old episodes, once again, I think we all deserve the Barry Horowitz self back pat. Because a lot of the stuff that we talked about back in June and July has really come to pass. Talking about Trump, I know Andy specifically mentioned the mail system starting to fuck up, and I thought it was really funny because he said, yeah, it's not getting a lot of press right now, which a couple months later, it was all been talked about. And, of course, there's still the pardon thing that we had talked about at length on many episodes.
That's still unfurling.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of the big ones have already happened.
Yeah, but you know what? See, Trump is too stupid to understand what he's really done. And he hasn't pardoned anybody that really matters yet. But when he decides to try to start doling out pardons to his family, people that don't need to be pardoned, I don't think. But what he don't realize is they have now given up their Fifth Amendment rights once you pardon them. Right. So when they're subpoenaed, they have to testify. They cannot hide. People, if you don't need a subpoena, you shouldn't take a subpoena. Because
a pardon.
You should take a pardon because you are just exposing yourself. He's too stupid to even realize. He thinks he's got this great toy that he can play with. But what he's going to end up doing is, now, the state of New York is going to drill him like a prison bitch.
Oh, for sure.
I can't wait for that. But,
well, let's also point out, by the way, that something that a lot of people still don't realize, which is that even if he gets a pardon, which I'll get to my new theory in a minute, but even if he gets a pardon, that only works on federal charges.
Right. Correct.
So even if he gets a pardon or pardons his family or whatever, there's a lot of stuff. And speaking for Trump himself, all the shit that's going on, like you mentioned, with New York State.
Letitia James is licking her chops.
Yeah.
She's just waiting. Who's the AG in New York State of New York? She's just waiting for him to be released from his presidential office.
Right.
Because those charges will probably be filed the week of.
Yeah, because he's not. Whatever pardons might happen, they don't apply to those charges.
He would have to be pardoned in the state of New York, and I don't think the governor's going to be doing that.
Yeah, I don't see that happen.
No.
But I will say this. I talked for a while about the theory that I had that he
tell Andy your theory real quick.
Right. So my theory that I came up with a while ago was that Trump is going to step down for a day or whatever he can legally do.
And Pence is going to pardon him.
And give it to Pence for a day so that Pence can pardon him. And that was my theory. And I was firmly behind it at the time, but now I have to go back and change it. Because at this point, the rift is quickly growing with Pence, which I'm sure you guys have noticed, because now, Pence booked himself to be out of the country right after he's got to go preside over the Electoral College.
Yep.
He booked himself to be out of the country. Like he's flying.
He's going to play it straight and bounce.
Yeah.
Yep. He's done.
Yeah. He doesn't want to be anywhere near Hurricane Trump.
He's trying to get as much Trump stank off of him, because if he ever wants to run for office again anywhere, if he wants to go back to Indiana, if he wants to run for Senate in Indiana, if he wants to run for Congress again, if he just wants to be on the speaking circuit, he needs to get as far away from Trump as possible.
Yeah, which in all fairness, he's kind of always been doing.
Yes.
But especially lately, and I think, other than the speaking circuit, I think he's done as far as politics goes. That's my theory. But here's my new theory about Trump. And this might come off as crazy, but follow me here. Len, do you remember my theory about progressives?
Mm-hmm.
And about how they should start their own party?
Of course.
Now, why did I say they should start their own party?
Because neither party of the two major parties are serving the needs of the many at this point.
There are a lot of people that don't feel like they're being served by either party. Now, wouldn't that apply to Trump's people at this point also?
Yes and no.
No, they're too stupid to realize it.
Well,
because they're Trump related.
He was never serving them anyway.
Oh, I know that, but they think he serves them. But my point is this: by the same logic that I use talking about the progressives with the Democratic Party, that they don't feel like the Progressive Party is serving them, and they don't feel.
You mean the Democratic Party is serving
the Democratic Party is serving the Progressive. By the same token, more and more it looks like Donald Trump is waging war not only on the Democrats, but at this point he's waging war on the Republicans too.
I agree.
And what if Donald Trump's new harebrained scheme is to start his own fucking political party?
He fails.
He'll fail, but
let him. That
doesn't mean he won't try.
That'll be the best way to get rid of him.
Doesn't mean he won't try. I think at this point he might be exploring that option.
That'll be the best way to get rid of him.
That is my new theory now, because
so you
I
think
look at
he's going to run in 2024 as on his own platform without being a Republican, just on the Trump ticket, basically?
Well, think about what I said about the progressives. They've got the support behind them. You know that some crackpot asshole would bankroll this thing for Trump. He's already bankrolling it anyway with all the grifting he's doing.
Dude, his current grift is insane.
Right.
Because he's really broke. He don't got no money.
Oh, well, that's why I never said that he would do it with his own money, because he doesn't have any money.
The only people that think he's got money are rappers that don't know him.
Right. But there's so many people that are just like, here, I'll give you money. And you know damn well he's going to take advantage of that.
Oh, yeah.
But based on my logic about the progressives, that they're not being served by either party, Trump at this point is building the case that he's not being served by the Republican Party, because here he is threatening these guys, saying, oh, I'll remember that you didn't do anything about this election fraud. Like, he's basically threatening these dudes
real.
on Twitter. Well, we know it's all a bunch of shit, but
I think in his mind he's convinced himself it's real now.
Well, but all the more reason why his next logical step with this grift would be to create a new political party, because the Republicans aren't doing enough to help him. So fuck that, we'll go do things on our own. And it's the same logic, even though it's flawed, because obviously there's a lot of bullshit involved here, but it's the same logic that I use talking about the progressives splitting from the Democrats and starting their own thing. Because they're not being served, in their minds, they're not being served by the party. Trump is not being served by the party. The people aren't being served by the party. And in the end, with stuff like this, with his bullshit, with this, with the stimulus deal and all this other stuff, he can just use that to build his case even more. That, hey, I'm fighting for the people. And you know the sheep are just going to go for it.
His attempt to deflect on this stimulus bill to make it seem like he actually cared about giving people more money was literally just a way to make both sides look worse.
Right.
It really had nothing to do with actually trying to help the people.
But that's what got me thinking about it, because I thought to myself, like, he put up that fight, but then he ended up signing the bill.
Right.
And he said that, and it's funny, by the way, because I'll pat myself on the back again, because I've mentioned multiple times on the podcast talking about line item vetoes, which they don't exist. It's something that people have always talked about and tried to do, but you can never do. And it's basically exactly what Trump is trying to do now, because he signed that bill and he said that he had redlined a bunch of things on that bill and wanted them to take it into consideration before they pass it, which basically means nothing, because they're not under any obligation to make any change on there, because he signed it. But it's the line item veto thing, like I talked about months ago. And
but
he thinks that he can do that when, meanwhile, that's not a thing.
Well, he wants to use that as a way to be like, look, I told them they shouldn't keep this in there, and they pushed it through. This is them fucking you. That has nothing to do with me. But bitch, you signed it.
That's exactly my point, because he's going to use that against the Republicans.
Yep. I agree.
That's going to be the new grift, because he's going to say, listen, they told me that they were going to look at these things and this and that, because supposedly they also agreed that they were going to look into voter fraud, which we all know how that's going to turn out.
Yeah.
But bottom line, once again, and this is why I'm throwing this theory out there. At this point, the rift is quickly growing with the Republicans, because nobody's got his back. Well, a handful of them are still, because a couple of them are still going to try to make a mess at the Electoral College thing, which we know isn't going to go anywhere. But he feels like they've betrayed him. He's putting it out there publicly, and that's going to be his next thing. And what better way? Honestly, I talked about the progressives. Trump, in his twisted logic, has way more reason than the progressives to make this move. Do you agree?
I think that both of them, unfortunately, will not have enough headwind to make it.
Right.
But there are enough, like, full-blown idiots that follow Trump that I think it might make a bigger push than the progressives, but neither one of them will actually succeed.
Well, the other part of my theory is, like it or not, a lot of fucking people voted for Trump.
Yep. 70 plus million.
Yeah. So how many of them would actually jump with him? That's another question. But this theory popped into my head, and I think that if the progressives could do it, and they have the motivation and the will and the means to do it, as much as I can't stand Trump and it's all based on a bunch of bullshit, Trump has the means to do it just as easily as they do, probably easier. And I think he would see that as a way, because Trump is all about two things, money and power. And do you really think he's going to make headway with the Republicans if he wants to run again?
Oh, no, he's dead in the water with the Republicans at this point.
And they know it too, although they won't admit it because they're hoping that he'll save them with the Georgia thing. But
and as soon as that's over, watch how fast they all start to turn.
I know, but you know what? I think Trump knows that too. And that's part of why he's setting this up now. Because I think in the end, he has no loyalty to the Republican Party. Because he's certainly not making things any easier for them.
So we have 24 days-ish till inauguration. How much wilder, how much more shit do you think we are going to find ourselves in these next 24 days?
There's going to be some more harebrained pardons, I know that.
Like, how deep is this bullshit going to get?
Well, there's a finite amount of things that he can do at this point. I mean, I don't want to say that I don't want to say the pardon is the biggest thing that he can do on his own. I think the fear that I have is that there is some other geopolitical tussle that involves or needs the U.S. to get involved with, and we're caught flat-footed because we can't make a sound decision on to take military action or not to take military action. It's going to come from another bad actor, that somebody's going to sense the power vacuum right now that's going on in the United States.
Yeah.
So I think that impetus could come from somewhere else. I don't think it's going to come from Trump himself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Trump's going to take us to war, but I'm afraid that maybe Russia invades one of its neighbors, or China does something in the South China Sea, or just something that we don't have a play in, but we're going to be flat-footed because we're going to be in the middle of this transition, and we're not going to have the proper full-throated response we should. If Biden was president, because he understands the geopolitical responsibility the United States has on the world scale that Trump doesn't seem to get.
Well, Biden was talking about that today, actually.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't surprise me. This is a little. I'd be a little nervous right now that, like I said, another bad actor somewhere else.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Biden was talking today about how he will have to mend relationships on an international level.
Absolutely.
But we knew that going into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's putting it out there publicly as a way to kind of break the ice, because
hey bro, I'm going to be giving you a call. We got some shit to talk about.
Yeah, we all know that's one of the biggest problems with the Trump presidency, that he's done all kinds of damage to the country on the international level.
Right. Things aren't transactional. We spend tens of millions of dollars on aid to other parts of the world to be the first ones in line when they need help from us.
Right.
That's why we're there. That's why we bankroll half this stuff. Because we get the reciprocal benefits from it. We're the key player at the table in all these negotiations, for all these treaties, for all these world organizations, whether it's NATO or the UN or I guess the Paris Climate Accords. We were always at the center of the table. Everything ran through us, and that's the way we want it to be. Not to be isolationist and just turn our back on the rest of the world. And because, like I said, he thinks of it as, well, why are we giving X million dollars to this third world S-hole country, as he would say? Well, because there are other reasons. It's not just the dollars in, dollars out. Right,
because that's all he thinks about.
Right. Yeah, because everything's everything's transactional with him. There's not he's not playing the long game. He's barely thinking about whether he's going to take a leak tomorrow morning, let alone what he's going to do tomorrow afternoon.
Well, by the way, speaking of another pat on the back, Trump, and he's completely wrong about this logic because he's right, but not for the reasons that he says. Trump has been talking about, tell me if you've heard this phrase before, the fact that America has become a third world country. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, but you did it.
Well, that's my point. He's talking about it like from an election standpoint, which is a bunch of bullshit. But the truth is, and we talked about this many months ago, the United States
didn't that come up literally in the first episode? It might have been. Are we reaching? If it wasn't the first one, it was the second one. It was one of the first episodes, and we had a long discussion about, is America a third world country? I'm talking about, I think we had that discussion with Andy specifically. I'm looking it up right now to see. Do you remember that, bud?
It's certainly possible. I mean, we were really jumping around. We were kind of plowing through a lot of material. So,
it wasn't the first one. It was the second one, the July episode. Okay. But it was with Andy. The title of that was Trailer Park of the World. Yes. Because we talked about America being a trailer park also. Mm-hmm. But we did talk about it being a third world country, and yes, it was with Andy. And that's why I brought it up, because this is where we're at. We've been there for a while. It's not because of the election stuff, but we're a third world country because Doctors Without Borders has to come here within our borders, to assist people that don't have any fucking health care, right, and who are sick with COVID. Yep. And this is not their usual area.
Yeah, we're usually not the one. We're usually ones that are sending the Red Cross, not calling the Red Cross. Exactly, and that's my point. And it's just funny because here's Trump talking about it, and his reasoning is completely wrong. But on the surface, the idea is correct. We have become a third world country. You broke it. You broke it. And it's your fucking fault. And his people will tell you that it wasn't his fault. Oh, of course, because his people, listen, his people still think that he's going to pull this thing out. His people still think they're counting votes. Right. It's over, Johnny. It's definitely over. Yeah, but that's where the trailer park part comes in, because these people still, oh yeah, he's going to pull it out. He's going to win this thing. Well, he's going to pull one of those like foam. He's going to pull one of those like those paper snakes out of his mouth. Like what? Like the rabbit in the hat, baby. Rabbit in the hat. He's going to be the next president. Well, what did he say a couple of weeks ago? He said, maybe it was last week, about the inauguration, and we don't know who's. I'm like, yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes. Oh yeah, that was at the end of. At the end of the speech where he was pushing for the $2,000 checks. Like, he said, the next administration, it could be me. Who knows? No. We know it's not going to be you, fucker. We know. You can be in denial all you want. We know. Pack your shit and go. Yeah. Now, what happens if he doesn't leave the White House? Oh, they will pack it. That goes in there and drags his ass out. So we had this conversation as well. Yes. Like previously, and I was on the fence, I believe, in this conversation about what they would do. But I am now fully on board with the fact that they will pack his shit and toss him to the fucking curb. Yes. See, I still think that there's going to be some resistance. You think so? I still think that there's going to be some people in the armed forces that in some twisted way will see him as being wronged, and he might. I in the end, it's not going to matter, because I don't think it's going to be nearly enough for them to actually help him stay. Mm-hmm.
but I still think there's going to be some resistance. I think they're going to find somebody. If you've got all these people all over this country that are drinking the Kool-Aid, some of those people have to be in the fucking military or something.
Yeah, but they're not higher
up.
They're not in the higher ups of the military, and if they do, they need to be court-martialed immediately.
Well, that would be the next step, although I think Biden is too much of a pussy to ever do that. But that's another story. But I think
that's a conversation for another show. But
right. But I think
there are some problems on the horizon as far as what Biden is going to do. Because if you ask me, I think he takes the gloves off. I think he should take the gloves off, prosecute them all, and just go through them like a hot knife with butter. But he's going to want to take the high ground.
Oh, no, he's already said that he wants to take the high ground, which I think is just some pussy bullshit. Because to me, and I firmly, I've talked on here before. I watch the Young Turks a lot and see the things that they talk about, and I agree with them 100% on the idea that all of this election bullshit is some serious anti-America shit.
Yes.
And that these people don't love our country, they don't love democracy.
Yep.
And that I've said before, put them in the fucking stockades in the middle of D.C.
No, this whatever happens when Trump leaves, there has to be some serious laws change, and Biden's got to come down really hard on these unpatriotic people who basically are trying to subvert democracy.
But he won't.
He won't. I agree.
Because the truth is, and you see them talk about it on all the the news channels that don't have a Republican spin to them. Although, CNN, corporate media, so they can't be fully trusted either. But they do make a good point, which is that here we are looking at the Senate, and here's Lindsey Graham giving Kamala Harris a fucking fist bump. Meanwhile, he's trying to fuck you. Mm-hmm. He's trying to fuck this whole country. Like, why are we giving people fist bumps? But that goes back to what I've always said about politics, that politics is just a big work. And much like pro wrestling, they go back in the locker room and they're all patting each other on the back. Good show, good show. Because in the end, the Democrats and the Republicans, they're all, they can't call each other out on anything because they're all guilty of the same shit.
Because they're all one of two.
They're all guilty of taking corporate money. So how can they call people out for it when they're doing the same shit?
And the system is set up with, the fall of Citizens United and the unlimited money in politics now, that they all have to play by those same rules. Exactly. Because if you don't, and you say, I'm not going to take any corporate money and I'm only going to take small donations, yada, 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 you end up standing there with your dick in your hand like Bernie Sanders. Right. Because, as I've said before, they're never going to give you the ball to run with. No. Because it's, in the end, it's going to fuck with their money. No. And that's why they'll never do it. When Citizens United fell, the political system was broken forever. Right. And there would have to be, basically, they would have to be cutting off their nose to spite their face to make legislation to make their lives more difficult, which they're never going to do. Right. Exactly. That's the whole point, because they're not going to fuck with their money. Their money comes from their corporate donors, and that's why in the end, all this talk about the $2,000 check, like they don't give. They're all like, oh well, we don't know about that because some people are going to get money that they don't deserve, and this and that. Meanwhile, another $1 trillion on a $23 trillion deficit already? It doesn't matter. Well, that and also you're worried about citizens taking advantage of it. Meanwhile, there's all kinds of shit that corporations are taking total advantage of, and you don't give a fuck. Yeah, all these rich assholes and corporations that don't pay a nickel in taxes. Exactly. I pay more tax. I pay more federal tax than, these like Fortune 500 companies. And how is that fair? Exactly.
but they're worried about, somebody might get 2 checks.
No, yeah, right. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go with an extra $600?
Well, right, exactly. And what the fuck is that $600 going to do anyway?
Yeah, I can't. Man, what am I going to make 2 car payments? I can't even take a vacation with that. You know what?
I'm saying,
what am I going to do? You
can't even pay a month's rent.
It's like, yeah.
But here's the other thing too. Again, Trump signed this thing and barely managed to avoid this again. But now, all the eviction stuff is only pushed another month now to the end of January.
Yep.
And only at the point where Trump hadn't signed the thing did all these news channels start talking about that. But Len, Andy, we've been talking about this for how many months now?
So many months.
Plenty.
We've been talking about this since we started this podcast back in June. So
too long.
All of a sudden now everybody's waking up to the shit that we've been talking about.
But that's the way it works.
Right.
You proceed to keep your head fully planted up your ass. This is what you end up with.
We've been talking about the eviction apocalypse since we started this podcast. And it's only a matter of time. They keep putting it off, but unless something significantly changes, which Biden may or may not do, eventually the apocalypse is going to come, because you've got these people, you keep putting it off, but every month goes by, they're still not making any money. And the rent just keeps piling up.
Right, yep. And also, too, is that, maybe they're letting you go on your rent, but somebody owns that building, and they have to pay rent.
Right.
The Citibank is going to eventually come for that money, too. It's basically all house of cards.
Absolutely. And it's not just like, fuck a slumlord shit. Like, some of these people that own properties don't have a ton of money.
No. So that's their source of income.
Yeah, it's all trickled down, because then they're not getting those rents,
right.
So they can't pay their property taxes and all this other stuff. So it's not like I'm on some anti-landlord shit. Right. I understand.
Nope. You got to make. They got it. They're providing a service, and they need to be compensated with their service, which is providing a location to live.
It's a whole house of cards.
Yep.
Nobody gets to live for free. I don't know how we fix it. I'm not smart enough to know that, but
you are smart enough to know that there's a fucking problem.
Oh, well, there's a festering problem.
Right.
But how? What's the answer? Now, I mean, and I think what's really going to suck is that Biden's going to get into office, and then all of a sudden, Mitch McConnell's going to say no more money.
Right.
We're not passing a bill, and then it's going to look like, it's going to look like Biden's fault. Unless somehow, some way, the Democrats pick up those 2 Senate seats in Georgia.
Which is possible.
I'd say it's 60-40 no, but they both have a puncher's chance, especially with Trump doing his damnedest.
Well, that's what I was going to say. All this bullshit that Trump is doing is not helping. And I guarantee you that part of the discussion before he signed that bill was them begging him to fucking chill.
Yep.
Begging him to chill the fuck out. Because they know he's doing damage to them. And that's part of why when I talked about the party thing with Trump, you're not going to see any Republicans crying about it. They'll be happy to be rid of him.
They'll be happy to be rid of him, but they will still be terrified of him because he is still so ensconced the Republican base that if he comes out and starts cutting ads for people, he's going to get people primaried.
Oh,
he's mad. He's going to get people primaried. He's going to continue to sow chaos.
Yep.
Once he gets out of office. But I think there are still going to be some Republicans that they're not going to confront him head on, but they will carefully tiptoe around him as best they can to try to keep the Trump base in their pocket, but not piss him off.
Right.
So they need his voters, but they don't need him, and they don't want him.
Yeah, that's the power that he really holds, because they hate him because let's face it, all this talk about him running again is just holding them up from what they want to do, because I'm sure they've got their own people that they want to move into that slot. And it would just effectively put...
You can wheel a piece of trash like Marco Rubio out there, who's a two-faced sack of monkey crap himself. But
sucks.
I think Trump will basically spend the next year or two keeping the 2024 Republican field frozen,
unless he splits off and does his own thing.
Yeah, I think he's going to have 1 foot in the pool, 1 foot out of the pool, and I think he's going to keep himself. He cannot handle not having the spotlight.
Right.
I agree. Can't function.
I agree.
And we've been in Jersey. We know this more than anybody else.
Of course.
I think at this point they would be happy to be rid of his fucking madness.
They would be happy to drop dead.
Yeah, they'd be scared of losing his sizable base, as crazy as that is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I think one way or another something's going to happen. I don't think... I mean, at this point, a lot of the stuff he's doing is kind of laying waste to the party.
Yep. He don't care, because he's not a Republican anyway. He's never been a Republican. He's been a freaking Democrat his entire life. And he just... The Republican Party was easier for him to co-opt.
Right.
They fell in line like sheep and just, rolled over. Yeah.
Well, but that's the other thing, and that's another reason why I wonder about the whole party thing, because I think if he were to leave and start his own thing, there are a bunch of bootlickers that would follow him right out.
Oh, there are a ton of bootlickers that would follow him.
There's a bunch of bootlickers that they would be so desperate to get his base that they would do anything.
I think that the fracture in the Democratic Party between the AOC liberal wing and the more centrist, Joe Manchin wing of the party has a better chance of staying as a whole than if Trump decides to go off the reservation completely and try to take his people with him.
Right.
This is just not a three-party system. The U.S. system is just not set up for three parties. Every time you have a third-party candidate, if you remember back, when Ross Perot ran, Ross Perot got 30-some% of the vote and 0 electoral college votes.
Right.
So he had no chance of winning, even though he had a third of the popular vote. So Donald Trump can go off and do his thing, and he's not going to have electors. The electors are still going to be pledged to the Republican Party and the Republican Party candidate. So if he splits the Republican vote down the middle, then he's just accelerating these red states that are turning blue.
Well, but here's another crazy idea for you. We know it's not that the system is not built for three parties. What if it becomes 4? What a twist that... Because listen, for all the stuff that I talked about how the progressives should split off, Trump splitting off probably has a better chance of success, at least initially, than anything the progressives would do.
Yeah, but I think the progressives understand that they have to hold the party together because that's the only way forward.
Well,
Donald Trump doesn't care. He's going to take his 30 million people and go wherever he wants to go. He doesn't care if he leaves the Republicans a bleeding animal on the side of the road.
Right.
He don't give a damn.
But I also think, are the progressives going to realize what we said, which is that they're never going to give them the ball? Because has Biden named a single progressive to his cabinet yet?
Not one.
He's not going to. Because Biden is so worried about playing nice with the Republicans who tried to fuck him.
I think that was one of the worst things that Obama ever did. Obama put a couple Republicans in his cabinet. Like, what was that about?
And Biden is on record saying that he's going to do the same thing.
Yep.
And I
just think the progressive wing of the party knows better how the game is played than the Trump wing of the Republican Party, who just don't understand anything than being a bunch of inbred hillbillies with red trucker hats.
Right.
I don't think they get the big picture. They don't give a shit. Trump doesn't give a shit. But I think the Democratic Party as a whole will see the opportunity and find a way to stitch a coalition together, even if they're fighting at the middle about, Biden's not progressive enough, or Biden's too conservative. It's like whatever it is. I think the Democrats still can function as the grown-ups in the room, whereas the Trump people and the Republicans, if they schism, they're gonna sink. They're both gonna sink like anchors.
Yeah, but as much as I hate to say this, we know this to be true, that the vast majority of Americans really don't care if there's an adult in the room. As crazy as that sounds, I think Trump has proved that, because for all of Trump's madness and bullshit, he has got a sizable support base. So clearly, whether we like it or not, or whether it doesn't make any sense to us at all, as the educated guys that we are, the three of us here, there's a lot of people that are down for his cause.
They're ready to ride for him.
They still got 6 million less votes than who voted for Biden. And Biden wasn't even a good candidate. More of those votes were against Trump than were for Biden himself.
Well, yeah, that was our theory anyway when we had talked about it, is that most of those votes for Biden, the reason why he got so many damn votes is because people were voting for not Trump.
Exactly.
Well, half of those Democrats were going to vote for whatever Democrat was at the top of the ticket. It wouldn't have mattered.
Right.
But the other half, who maybe have been in the middle, or maybe had tried Trump and are now fleeing from the carnage. It's like, all right, we tried it once. We chipped a tooth. We're not going to do that again.
Yeah, but Trump's.
It's going to be a very tumultuous year.
Oh, for sure. But I think Trump's people are also going to be out there and vocal. Mm-hmm. And as stupid as we might think they are, they've got some power. And I could see him making some moves with those people.
I would be curious to see when he's out of office how many of those people are still around.
It's an interesting question that I've seen a few people talk about, that once he's out of sight, maybe he's out of mind. But
he's going to do everything to stay in mind, but I don't know if he's going to have the political gravitas to keep a hold of things.
Well, I think he's going to have that strong base. As much as we might think they're uneducated or trailer park or whatever they are, they're still there and they're still loud. And like it or not, there's a fucking lot of them.
Too many of them.
Yes.
So of those 70 plus million that did vote for Trump, how many of them do you think were just Republicans, just voting Republican down the line? And how many of them do you think were actual true Trump trainers? Because that is also a telling piece. So, we're talking about the fact that he did get 70 million votes. But again, there are a certain section of Republican voters that just will not vote Democrat, no matter how badly burned they felt by him. So, how big is how heavy is his pull? Is it as heavy as we're saying? Are we overstating it just because, the number looks so big, but it really wasn't nearly as bad as it actually could have been, are we overblowing it?
I really don't know. And that's the real question. Because he did get a lot of votes.
Yes, he did.
Bottom line. And we know...
technically, if you don't count the fact that Biden blew him out, he still got the second most votes of all time.
Exactly. And think about this, too. And this is how I gauge crazy, okay? He did all these rallies And look at how many motherfuckers were at every one of those rallies. And think about the fact, whether they know it or not, they could explain it away or say whatever. Think about the fact that pretty much every person that was at those things, in my mind at least, was willing to die for that dude. Because those things were super spreaders. Everybody knew they were super spreaders. You saw all these people not wearing masks.
They don't give a fuck about that.
No, they don't give a fuck, and that's what I'm talking about, because that's why I said whether they know it or not, they don't give a fuck, and that's how dedicated they were to that dude, that they're willing to just throw logic and common sense out the window just to back that dude.
That COVID was a hoax, though. He said it himself.
It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that anybody went to any of those rallies. But it just
you could have
shows
voted for Trump all you want, but to go to one of those events, yeah, it does show a lack of judgment.
That's what I mean. Whether they know it or not, they were ready to die for that dude. And some of them did.
Yep.
And if you did a rally tomorrow, and let's face it, he's planning to do another rally in Georgia, and he's planning something for Inauguration Day.
Well, he's going to have a protest on the 6th, too, I think.
Yeah. He's got a few things planned. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see people go. And you're going to see people out there, and they are 110% behind that dude. Whether we like it or not, he's got a sizable base behind him now that is willing to go crazy, and we've barely seen the extent of how crazy they're willing to go.
Well, Len, you asked it. You said it. You know, how many of those people? Is it 20 million? 30 million? I don't
50?
know, but it's some sizable chunk.
Right.
It may be
but is it enough?
It may be 1/4 of the electorate, maybe. But does time heal all wounds? And once he's not in my face every minute, will that fade a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, do they? Is it shiny object syndrome?
Well,
or, is it like he's here, he's making waves, I'll stick with him, but as soon as he's gone, I'll fuck him. But we're moving on to the next guy.
Yeah, but here's a question for you, Len. You said, is it enough? Is it enough for what? Is it enough for him to get elected? Probably not. Is it enough for him to make a mess?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Because to me, and this is a long shot, and tell me if you guys disagree with me on this. I compare it, and I know a lot of people hate this comparison. Once upon a time,
don't say Hitler.
He read my mind, Andy. Once upon a time, Hitler was just building a base and had a lot of support all around internationally.
1937 Germany.
Exactly. Once upon a time, the Nazi Party had a rally in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, I'm well aware of that.
I'm sure you are. And to me, like I said, maybe it's crazy to me. Maybe it's crazy to people, but to me, this is, and it's very different in a lot of ways, but I see a lot of similarities between that.
I do too.
And the build of what Donald Trump has going on.
Well, the problem is that, and this I firmly believe, is that nobody is willing, not saying nobody, but the general nobody's willing to accept the fact that history is attempting to repeat itself.
Right.
And people are just trying to push it aside, and it's an anomaly. No, this is not an anomaly. This is how it actually happens. It's that same adage of, do you want ants? Because this is how you get ants.
Right. But that's exactly where I'm going, because it's a classic, like you said, history repeats itself. Look, cult of personality.
Well, this guy clearly has authoritarian and dictatorial tendencies and desires, and as of right now, the system has held.
Right.
How long it will hold, We don't know. It will require strong leadership, and it actually will require strong leadership from the Republicans as well.
Well, but that's another thing too, because that's part of what I think about with the fact that so many people have let it get this far
They just all rolled over.
No resistance. And I'm including Joe Biden in that, because if he does not go hard, which we know he won't,
he's not going to go hard.
He's not going to go hard at all. And that bothers me, because you're just setting the stage for the next step.
He's just going to... Well, also, too, I think what the scariest thing is, you hear people talk about this, this was like the clown car coup. If this had been somebody competent, this would have already happened.
Right.
It's just the fact that Trump was such a dithering buffoon and doesn't really understand politics and doesn't know his ass from his elbow. He just bungled this away. But he had the country on the precipice of a constitutional crisis.
Well, Andy, I said this on an episode that you weren't on, but I refer to him as Wile E. Coyote.
Pretty much.
Because he's got all these harebrained schemes, and they still don't work because he's using Acme shit.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but if you sit there and think about it, like the whole mail thing, he had this big plan. COVID, he had this big plan. All these things, he has some harebrained scheme that ends up backfiring. Like COVID, they have the whole thing about Jared Kushner having the meeting, and they said, oh, well, the Democratic states are getting it, so let's let them get it, and then we'll sweep in and save everybody. Didn't quite happen that way.
No.
Same thing with...
Score one for the boy genius.
Right. Same thing with the mail system. Oh, well, we'll cripple the mail system so it'll help us win the election. Didn't work out that way. We'll get this woman into the Supreme Court so that when the voter stuff happens, she can make sure that we take care of it. Didn't happen.
Quite work out for you, bro.
All of these plans, Dr. Evil's got all these plans, Wile E. Coyote's got all these plans, and then something backfires. It's like a fucking cartoon. And that
Rudy Giuliani backfired on you.
That's Trump in a nutshell. All these harebrained schemes that all end up not working the way we thought they would.
Well, that's why I said, if you had somebody more competent trying to run this 3-card Monty on us, maybe it would have worked.
Right. But you got a dummy.
A dummy surrounded by dummies.
I shouldn't even say that, because I don't think he's dumb. I think in a lot of ways he's got some intelligence, but
he's got some intelligence. But unfortunately for us, the public, is that he didn't choose to read and immerse himself in how politics actually works.
That's true. But the problem is, here he is playing Pied Piper to a whole bunch of people that don't read either.
Right.
And
that he's successfully done.
And that's where the real problem is, and that's why, everything starts somewhere, and that's why, like I said, talking about Hitler is crazy. Some people think that comparison is.
Nope.
In the 30s, a lot of people
thought it was
didn't think anything of it.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, when this started, I was comparing his motherfucking ass to Hitler. And people were like, yo, don't go that far. And I'm like, yo, I'm not going that far. This is the real deal. You got to pay attention. I'm not trying to fucking spit in your ass and tell you it's raining. He is putting all the cards on the table for you to see that this is the direction he's headed. You don't want to see it, that's on you. I'm not stupid.
Yeah, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them.
Believe them.
Yeah. Well,
subtlety has never been his game.
Oh, no, never.
So he just tries to do it right out in the open. So believe him. What you see is what you get.
Oh, yeah. But I always said that one of the crazy things, and I know we talked about it on one of the early episodes too, is that a lot of politicians are full of shit and they're just putting up a front and you don't see what they're really about.
Mm-hmm.
But Trump got elected, for better or worse, Trump got elected being totally himself. He's an asshole. He knows he's an asshole. He's proud to be an asshole. And you've got a whole country, not complete, but you've got a large contingent of people in this country that are happy with being stupid. The whole idiocracy thing.
Oh, yeah. It's right there.
Let me just be blissfully ignorant.
I like money.
They're happy to be ignorant, and they're happy to be told what to do. And they're happy to have a guy be the boss.
Who's tough, who's going to stand up.
Right. And they fall for his bullshit. And like I said, the rise of Hitler started slow and started small. A lot of people, if you don't know your history, like we were talking about before, the Nazis had a rally in Madison Square Garden. It's on video. It's on YouTube. Look for it. If you look online, there's photos of it. There's video of it.
Tons and tons of people filling Madison Square Garden.
We've talked about how I'm into New York City history.
I mean, all right, let's just go back for a second. This is still within my father's lifetime.
Yes.
People who existed then are still alive now.
Yeah.
Easily. They had a Nazi rally in New York City.
Well, there was and still exists such a thing as the American Nazi Party. Still exists.
I'm trying to look up the date of that Madison Square Garden rally. 1939.
Yep. And my dad was born in 34.
Right. My mother was born in 36. So this is in her lifetime also. So I've mentioned on here before, I'm really into New York City history. One of the things that I'm heavily into is I have a bunch of books and some items and stuff like that from the 64-65 World's Fair that was in Queens. Part of being into that is that I also have absorbed a lot of information about the earlier World's Fair in 1939 that was on the same spot in Queens, Flushing Meadow Park.
Yep.
That's where
I know where it is.
And one thing that a lot of people don't know about is that Germany had a pavilion at the 1939 World's Fair, and you can find photos of it, and there's big, huge swastika flags hanging, and a big swastika in the sculpture on the top with the eagle at the 1939 World's Fair in Queens. Nobody thought anything of it back then. And then look at what happened, less than 5 years later?
Less than a year later, 2 years
exactly.
later.
Yep.
But look at what that turned into over the next couple of years after that. That was 1939. And a lot of people don't think about it, don't realize it. But, there it is.
And
right under your nose.
I mean, let's be serious.
I mean, just so you guys
people
see
these
it,
days
I'll share it on here for a second.
Don't pay attention just to the history of the things that they're personally involved in, let alone political events.
Yeah.
So that was that
was the Germany pavilion at the World's Fair in 1939 in Queens. And you see the swastika
Yep, that's it.
flags and the swastika on top with the eagle. And the Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden actually has its own Wikipedia entry.
Oh, I've already read probably 5 times. Just because I wanted to know what the fuck was going on, and then I needed to know even more, so I read it again.
Well, somebody had released the video sometime fairly recently.
I saw that video. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's the short 2017 documentary film, A Night at the Garden.
Yep.
So that was only a couple of years ago. So somebody put that out online, and it was actually nominated for an award at the Sundance Film Festival. And it was about that rally, and it has that footage, which is crazy. But, you know, if you think that Trump's shit is just going to stay small, or this Proud Boys shit is just going to stay small, it might, but there's an example of what might happen if it doesn't. Because all these little groups like the Proud Boys and Trump's other supporters here and there, they could get together and be much bigger.
Oh, easily.
And what does that lead to? And if everybody just sits there licking boots, or at the very least just writing it off,
Yep.
how long before it becomes a force that we can no longer write off?
I mean, the Proud Boys, I think there are a lot more of them than we even recognize.
Oh, sure.
They're hiding in the fucking
Oh, you
shadows.
mean racists?
No, actual, like, members. Not just people who wish they were members, but there are actually more members than we can even account for.
Probably.
Oh, for sure. But that's the way any of these type of organizations go. Like, if you think about a gang, there's gang members that are out there rocking colors and shit. But for all of those, there's the guys that do the real work that are meant to blend in. They're not out there rocking colors. They're out there making you not notice that they're even there until it's too late.
Well, I mean, look at our fucking police force. It's full of white power people.
Oh, sure. But if they, you know, if you're in a gang and you got beef with another gang, you're looking for dudes from that gang, but the dude that comes and shoots you isn't going to be wearing colors necessarily, because then you'll see him coming.
Right.
So you got to watch out for the ones that they think you're not going to see them coming. So all this Proud Boy shit and all this other shit, all these racists in general, they're out there. And that's the real problem, because I've always said, listen, Trump could be out in January, but that next door neighbor that's got the swastika flag hanging in his basement that you don't know about, he's not going anywhere.
Well, when I drive to my dad's house, sorry, let me just drop this real quick.
Yep.
Ewing Township has been taken over by a number of people purchasing college housing and then having, like, college kids from the TCNJ come and live there. And legitimately at the corner of my father's house, like corner of my father's street, there's like a big frat-ish house. And inside, you can clearly see a whole bunch of Trump banners and things hung on the windows. And I would not doubt if there were some actual, like, Nazi flags inside of there.
Right.
I mean, the people exist. And they will continue to persist.
Well, also, too, is what Trump has done is Trump has given that, shine light on that. He's given them oxygen.
Oh, sure.
He's given them the thumbs up and the green light to crawl out from the shadows and make you feel like it's okay to show your face.
Oh yeah, they feel bolder than ever right now.
Yep. They've always been there, but like Trump has, you know, just kind of given them that little nudge to say, okay, boys, it's okay to come out in the light here.
Oh, for sure. And that's something that we've talked about before, because, you know, being in bands and coming up in like punk rock and hardcore, like, those people were always a target. Anytime they showed their face, they'd get beat.
It just beat them right out of there.
But now, in regular society, they're not getting beat. They're actually being encouraged to come out and hang out with other like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're coming out of their holes, and they feel empowered because, oh, hey, he's one of us. Talking about Trump.
Yep. Well, what you're talking about is, you know, the scene policed itself.
Exactly.
Nobody's policing society now.
Right, because in listening to those old episodes, we were talking about the people at Walmart with the swastika mask. And like, how were they allowed to even walk into Walmart without getting pounded?
Yeah. I don't even get it. I don't get it. I don't know how that's even possible.
Yep. And we talked about it months ago, and honestly, I think in the time since we talked about it, it's only been encouraged even more.
It's totally ridiculous. They should have been stomped from the fucking door.
I agree.
I don't care that they were older people. Just keep your fucking ass at home.
Well, if you have the audacity to wear that in public, you gotta know what's coming.
Well, for sure. But now that's the thing. They're getting more and more comfortable because they've gone out and they realize that nothing's coming. But that's why, okay, a guy like Joe Biden, he can't necessarily do anything about that. But that's why you take a guy like Trump and you make an example of him, because you can't, yeah, he's got racist tendencies, but you can't necessarily come after him directly for that. Right. But he's done so many things that directly challenge the basics of our country and our democracy and our Constitution.
Norms.
So why the fuck are you giving him a pass? And why are you talking about the Republican people that backed his shit and talking about, oh, well, we're not going to embarrass them? He said, I'm not going to put Mitch McConnell in a position where I embarrass him. Fuck that. Embarrass the fuck out of him. Fuck that dude. That dude basically is trying to enable a fascist. And that dude is doing a lot of things that are doing serious damage to this country and to the people of this country. Not the corporations, not the millionaires, but the regular fucking people that are living paycheck to paycheck. Mitch McConnell has fucked them.
Happily.
And
over and over again.
And you're going to give the dude a pass? Fuck that.
No pass. That's why if you gave me the opportunity to vote for AOC, I would vote for her, because she would not give him a pass.
Right. And
she would come for his fucking throat.
And that's part of why I said I think they should start their own party.
But they're never going to give her the keys to the fucking Democratic Party.
I don't think they've got the balls to do it, honestly. I would love to see it. But if you want to talk about more balls and brains, that's why I think Trump will end up doing it. Because Trump won't give a fuck. Because even if it fails, it's just another way for him to make some money.
Yep. Easy way for him to make money.
But...
and blame somebody else.
Of course. He'll blame, the system won't let us do what we want to do, or some bullshit. But that's why I think he would do it, because he's got nothing to lose at this point. And he's got everything to gain, especially a bunch of fucking cash. Which we all know that's his main motivation. But by the logic that I use for the progressives, that logic certainly applies to Donald Trump also. A lot of it is based in bullshit and him being completely full of shit, but a lot of people believe his bullshit.
They eat it like it's fucking candy.
Right. So why would they not go all in behind that? I could totally see it. And that idea only popped into my head in the past couple of days, just seeing how these things are progressing and the way his relationship with Republicans is quickly deteriorating.
So, as we're working towards the end of this year here, headed into 2021, do either of you have any predictions for where we're going to be 3, 6, 4, 9, 12 months out from now? So, like, what do you think is going to happen in the next year? You guys have any thoughts on that? And can take into consideration, like, COVID, the vaccine, the transfer of power over to Biden, just society in general, like, has anything popped in your head that you want to put on record before we head into this next year?
Well, I'll let Andy go first on this one.
Well, you mentioned COVID, and I think that even when we get some sense at the top of the not the answer, but we get some sense at the top of the political food chain, I still think we're going to see COVID carry its way all the way probably into the early spring or into the summer, because I think I saw today, there should have been 20 million vaccine doses given out already, and there's only been like 2.
Oh, yeah.
We forget how quickly we forget that there are 300 plus million people in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
In order to, whether you love Dr. Fauci or you hate him, we all know that somewhere between 75 to 85 to 90% of the population's got to be vaccinated before we have this mythical herd immunity. Mm-hmm. And I think we are. If you ask me in 6 months, am I still going to be wearing a mask to run over to Wawa? The answer is going to be yes.
I think personally, I think the masks are here to stay. I don't think we're going to get rid of them for a long time. Like, well, I
used to laugh when I used to see those pictures of like Japan and Taiwan when they were the SARS and the bird flu, and they were all running around with their masks. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
And they've been wearing them for a long time, because they were around when I went to Japan 2009. There were masks all over the place.
And I laughed, and I'm like, what is wrong with these people? Now it's like, well,
now you know.
It's part of life.
So, for me, someone asked me just, I don't know, 2 days ago, do you think by June we're going to be able to go out and do things? And I said to the person, I was like, absolutely not. We're going to be in the exact same position we're in right now and look to be still under a semi-quarantine, wearing masks next Christmas. We're going to have a second COVID Christmas, and you can bet on it. I will put my money on it right now. I don't care. There's no way that they're going to cover as many people as we need to cover worldwide to make this work. And then you add on the fact that they have found 3 to 4 new strains, super strains of coronavirus in various places that didn't even have new travelers. It has just gone and mutated on its own. Fuck out of here. We're not getting out of this that easily. So
and I think
we'll be under this.
I think I get angry because I see everybody hand jobbing all over the place about this vaccine.
Hey, it's
such a great day. It's a game changer. Because de Blasio, New York City mayor, is like, oh, it's such a great day. There's light at the end of the tunnel. No, there's not.
Yeah, there's light at the end of the tunnel. It's a train.
No, it's not. Everybody thinks this vaccine is like, oh, it's the end. It's the end. No, it's not. First of all,
the work has just begun.
If you're a regular schmuck, you're not getting that vaccine anytime soon.
Nope.
You're not getting that vaccine until like late spring, early summer.
Maybe.
Maybe. And that's if they make all the vaccine they're supposed to make, which obviously they're already starting to fail on. But on top of that...
Yeah, well, there's 2 billion people in the world that need this vaccine. It's not just us.
Right. But also, even once the vaccine happens, I think there's going to be issues with it. And I think the fact that they ran this whole testing phase so quickly is very sketchy.
It's very sketchy, and it flies in the face of how conventional medicines and vaccines are developed, and efficacy is determined. So I'm a little nervous, and I think there's going to be a combination of things that are going to wreck the next year. They're going to find out that some of these vaccines are not 95% effective. Maybe they're only 80% effective.
Right.
Or they're not going to be as responsive or useful to the mutations, whether they're new or coming or evolving. I mean, I think that the last thing I saw was that some of the mutations that are coming over from Europe, you know, the way the vaccine attacks the spike proteins, they're still effective at the moment, but how many more mutations is it going to take before they're not going to be?
Right.
And then how quick is the vaccine manufacturers going to respond to get something that will, and when will we know? And are we going to be sitting here getting vaccines that don't do shit for anybody? And it just...
Well, and also let's look at it practically. They want you to get a flu shot every year, okay?
Mm-hmm. And they don't even know which flu shot is going to work for the year. They take an educated guess.
Right. So
but because all the research on flu vaccines is based on the prior years.
Exactly. That's exactly where I'm going with this. Because, okay, maybe that vaccine will work for now, but next year they're going to have to come with another vaccine.
And are we setting ourselves on a path where we're going to have to get a COVID shot every year?
Right. And there's already resistance to vaccines in general in the regular
people are assholes.
Yes.
No, in general, I don't disagree, but now I know a lot of people, and Len and I are two of them because we've discussed this on the podcast before, and I know plenty of other people like this also. We're not anti-vaccine people in general, like some people are, but we're very skeptical about this one.
I'm initially cautious.
Right. And I know people that are going to be required to get this vaccine before they can work. And I know people that are very uncomfortable with that. And I understand that completely. I'm not in that position, but if I was in that position, I'd have a pretty serious... I'd really have to think about it. Because I'm not comfortable with it. And I know people, I won't name names, but I know people who have doctors in their family who are skeptical about this. Doctors.
So Andy and I know a few scientists in general, but I sidebarred with one that is friends with some of our friends that do scientific work. And I'm going to read it to you verbatim. I think I already screen capped it for Gary, but I don't think I sent it to Andy. So I wrote to my friend and I said, "Dear scientist, should I trust that the vaccine has been put through the correct amount of rigor that any other vaccine has?"
Well, you know the answer to that already.
Hold on. I got a response, and the response reads, "Appreciate the question. I trust them all to a varying degree and would take any of them myself, weighing risk versus reward. From a quality perspective, I trust J&J, Pfizer, AstraZeneca the most. Moderna is a small company that has never commercialized anything, so they haven't been through decades of audits. From a stability perspective, I trust J&J, Moderna, and AZ, AstraZeneca, because they don't require ultra-low temperature and are less likely to be compromised during shipping. From an efficacy perspective, the Pfizer and Moderna data is fantastic. J&J hasn't released theirs yet, and AstraZeneca has some questions. So the lead choice would be the J&J, assuming the good efficacy data. But, and this is the caveat, I am biased because I work for the company, but it is a single dose. Definitely no corners were cut in coming up with it, and it's the largest scale clinical trial, including a diverse population. So this person actually works for J&J. They have white papers for all the research, and they actually have patents for the research that they have, because there are products on the market that are readily available across the entire world. So I went directly to the source of someone that has been involved in trials in general to get their take. It made me a little bit more, not comfortable, but a little less hesitant about it, I'm still not going to run out and take it right now, even if they said, hey, we have 500 million doses of this and we're ready to give it to everybody come tomorrow. I'd be like, nah, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and see how like other people do with it. But if it gets to a point where enough people have taken it and there haven't been major side effects and
Correct.
it's been doing well, like, and less people have been coming down with it, or it's their cases are so inconsequential that it is like catching the flu or just a regular cold because your body is able to fight it off much better because it's already been prepped for it. I guarantee you I will go take that vaccine. I'm not against vaccines. I am still skeptical that they got it through so fast.
Well, I mean, I will agree with what you said, and I'm also fairly close to pharmaceuticals. I mean, my mother worked in pharmaceuticals for 3 decades, doing clinicals, trials, you know, so I know how this stuff works from both sides. So when I'm hearing these reports and reading this stuff, I have a little more insight than, you know, Joe average. So I understand about the trials and how this stuff works. So I have a certain comfort level with vaccines in general, and I'm kind of with you. I want to let that first round of vaccines get out there, and then I also agree. I would rather take 1 dose. I'd also rather, you know, deal with something that didn't require to be stored at -70 Celsius.
Right.
And have a second dose and just be more complicated. So maybe if you wait a little longer, since I'm healthy and I'm not worried about getting it, you know, I could see myself, you know, letting the first round pass and then, you know, in the spring or whenever it's readily available, getting it. But I'll get my vaccine. I'll get it. I'm not worried about it.
So how about these people that are like, yo, they're going to track me. They're going to put a chip in this thing or... How painful are those people?
The Trump voters?
QAnoners? Real patriots? Whatever.
It's really... It's like, so, okay. So basically what you're telling me is you've never had a vaccine. That's what you're saying. You've never had a shot in your entire life.
I don't want to have a vaccine card. Bitch, you already have one.
Yeah, but listen.
Already have one.
That means if that's your attitude, that means you also don't want to have a cell phone. You don't want to have a bank account with a debit card. You don't want to have an Easy Pass.
Right.
Like,
okay, so I'm not on the Easy
Pass,
Pass train. I hate the Easy Pass. Put a fucking toll taker out there. I don't care if you got only 1 lane that takes tolls. I will sit in that fucking lane to not have to use an Easy Pass. And it's because I don't like the actual Easy Pass company. It's not about them tracking me.
10 companies, government agencies, or whatever know where you are, what you're doing,
at all times.
You did yesterday. You know, we are all being tracked. Like,
I'm just not that damn interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said to Len when we were talking about this the other day. I said, like, anybody really gives a fuck what you're doing anyway.
Right.
What are you doing? What are you doing that's so important?
Like, don't confuse yourself with someone who's important. Nobody gives a shit about you. You could fall off the earth tomorrow. Nobody cares.
But again, it's already too late. If you own a computer, if you have a debit card, if you have a cell phone,
if you have a car with OnStar, if you have anything,
listen,
you got satellite radio in your joint.
Yep.
Len, it doesn't matter because you know what now? If you have a car, period, because
they can find you.
They can find you.
Now, most of the tolls, they don't bother with toll booths anymore.
Yeah, they just
it's all cashless, so they take a picture of your plate. So how many cameras are out there that you don't know about that are taking pictures of your license plate?
They are every fucking where.
Right. So if you own a car, it's already done. Doesn't matter
if you leave your house. If you're in your house and you have the internet in your house, they're tracking you.
Right.
If you
got a cell phone, they're
go
tracking
1 mile from your house, you are being tracked by 5 devices.
Right. We had this discussion on this podcast a while ago, and I said it back then. It's already way too late.
Yep.
Because you can't do anything without a bank account.
They don't need to put a fucking chip in you or a fucking barcode on your fucking wrist. Like, sure, I love the movie Idiocracy, and the fact that you're unscannable is funny, and but it's not, that part of that movie isn't going to happen because they've skipped past the idea of needing to scan you because you are already scanned everywhere.
The same way that I was just talking about with cars and the license plate reading cameras and all that stuff. They have the same stuff for facial recognition.
Oh, that's exactly where I was about to go.
Like you go in the airport.
But one thing I got to say, and I got to tie this back to COVID. If COVID wasn't real, there is no way they'd be telling us to wear masks because this is fucking up all their protocol for facial recognition technology.
Oh my God. It annoys the shit out of me when I pick up my phone and I have my mask on and it's like, I'm like, fuck.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And you know what the worst thing is? Is like my new iPhone doesn't have the thumb scanner anymore.
Oh yeah, no, the newer one they did that away with those a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, my 11 doesn't have a thumb scan on it, and I'm like, son of a bitch. Now I actually have to now I'm back to putting a pin in.
Yeah.
See, I still only put the pin in. I never my phone allows me to do the thumb scan, but I refuse to just willfully turn over my thumb scan to Apple. I know that my thumb scan exists 1,000 other places, but I don't need to willfully give it to Apple. And when I get whatever my next phone is, I'm also not going to give them my face scan willfully. I'm sure it's been scanned 1,000,000 times. I already know it, but for me to physically sign off on giving it to them is too much for me. So I just won't do it.
Yeah, see, I don't give a fuck. I'm done.
Yeah,
I don't know. It just bugs me.
Yeah, I understand. To me, like I said, it's already too late. But I won't talk to the fucking thing. Fuck Siri, Alexa, all that shit.
Siri and Alexa are banned. If you cannot use them in my house, I am not dry snitching on myself willfully.
No,
I'm the same way.
No. I don't. I'm not that fucking lazy that I can't, type something into a search engine.
And everything's got it now too, because like my cable TV remote has a voice thing built in. I'm like, no, I'm not using that.
Nope.
And my Fire Stick has it. All these things all have voice stuff built in. It's like, no, I'm not talking to the fucking thing.
For convenience.
It's not convenient.
It's not that damn. Nope.
It's all pitched in the idea that, if we learn about you, we can make things easier on you. Well, at the same time, they can also, micro-target you and, like I said, just collect extraneous data,
Or just target you with a drone strike.
There you go. Now we're talking.
So I was looking at my phone while I was at my dad's house the other day, because I had given someone directions to meet me there to pick up something I had not purchased, built. And I said, all right, well, let me see how close these fucking directions will be to getting to my house versus how close my signal is to where that location is. So I'm standing in the middle of my dad's house, and legitimately the locationing on an iPhone is within like 50 feet at this point. If they wanted to drone strike me, they could easily just blow me up where I sit.
Yep.
I mean, there may be some collateral damage. Another house or two might get damaged in the process, but they could fucking just drop all kinds of hellfire on me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, without a doubt.
Drop a couple barrel bombs and you'd be gone. But see, that thing, to Apple, you're a customer. You're worth money to them. They don't want to blow you up. It's whoever else might get that information that may want to harm you.
Right.
Not to say they would, but...
Nobody's looking to do that. At most, they're just trying to steal my credit card information. But that's been the same for years and years and years.
That's That's almost like a victimless crime now. You call for a part fraud and they put the money back and then you move on with your life.
Pretty much.
Goes to show you how much money the credit card companies are making.
So let's get back on track here with more predictions for 2021.
So what are we saying here? Are we really saying that 2021 is going to suck as much as 2020?
I'm calling 2021 to be basically a 2.5 month longer repeat of 2020. We're going to be having this damn same conversation.
I can't say that you're crazy.
I don't see much difference, honestly. Maybe
like people are trying to say like they want to plan vacations for like the summer. I'm like, bitch, you are not going anywhere. Don't plan on going nowhere. Just wipe your slate clean. Stay the fuck home. Honestly, what I would personally like to see is a worldwide 30-day shutdown of everything. Don't open nothing except for food services, and those food services should be delivery only, whether that's grocery store or food, like actual food service. Drop that shit off, like have basically like sections of neighborhoods. You're getting your food deliveries on Mondays. This section is getting food deliveries on Tuesdays, and stay the fuck in your neighborhood, in your house. Like, you want to go out and take a walk in your neighborhood, that's fine. But otherwise, stay in your fucking house. I don't give a fuck about your rights at this point. If we had done this from the goddamn start and stuck with it, this shit would be gone.
Well, that's absolutely true, because I said it when it was happening with the debates. They were talking about, Joe Biden wants to shut everything down again. I said, yeah, he's probably going to have to shut everything down again, but that's because this other stupid orange motherfucker fucked it up the first time. If he had done it right the first time, we wouldn't have to do it a second time.
Yep.
That's the real problem. Don't blame
Biden. How many times this guy had to fuck it up?
We've discussed this many times. I'm not a big Biden fan.
Nope, neither am I.
No. But I'm not going to pin it on him.
No,
this whole thing is
the boss.
Jump. This whole thing has been fucked up for a long time, and if you don't believe
we've been
me,
lied to.
If you don't believe me, look at the fucking numbers, okay?
So
because
here's my prediction.
The worldwide numbers tell a full story.
Yep.
We are going to see absolutely record-smashing deaths in January and February.
Absolutely.
I agree 100%.
Just absolute decimation. Numbers we could never have even perceived, because people were fucking dumb as shit between Thanksgiving and New Year's.
We already saw the surge from Thanksgiving
and being bad, but it's going to continue to get worse.
Yeah, it's going to hit the ceiling. Like right now, you hear California, like they don't have an ICU bed in California.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck's going to happen? People are just going to be dying on the streets.
Yep.
We don't have enough nurses. We don't have enough doctors. We don't have PPE. People still, to this day, think this is a joke.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sure.
But that's what you get when you have the fucking orange idiot running this shit, not taking it as serious as he needs to.
But that goes back to what I said before about whether these people realize it or not. They're willing to die for that dude, because I've seen reports on TV. You've got these nurses and doctors that are working in emergency rooms and in hospitals, and they're saying that these people are breathing their last breath, and in their last breath they don't understand what's happening to them because they're convinced that the fucking thing is a hoax.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they just don't understand why this is happening to them, because they're just so in denial of the fucking thing, because they're so deep with that Kool-Aid that they just can't process the reality that's happening in front of them.
The Trump legacy will be COVID, and it will be how a how a medical pandemic was turned into a political football.
Right.
And hundreds of thousands of people had to die because of it.
But let me go on record again with something. I don't blame all of this on Trump.
No.
Because Trump is... The problem came long before Trump. He's just a manifestation of it. But
he's the messenger.
All of this shit, all of this stupidity
has been brewing.
Has been brewing for a long, long time. He's just brought it all to the surface so that we can see it for what it really is. But he's not the problem.
He's not the cause. He's a symptom.
Exactly. And I don't think a lot of people fully wrap their heads around that, but that's the truth. He is a mess, and he has brought a lot of shit to the surface that was there for a long time, and that includes the racism, that includes just the general stupidity, because I taught my kids when they were smaller, long before Trump was even considering this shit. I told them, I said, there's a lot of people that enjoy, that bask in their stupidity, and you can't be like that. And it was going on. Listen, it's been building for years, even before I had kids at all. I've seen, and we always joke about Idiocracy, but Idiocracy just put it all together perfectly. But it's something that we've been slowly seeing build for years. That not only is it just a lack of intelligence, but it's a joy in that lack of intelligence.
Willfully ignorant.
I'm stupid.
And I'm happy.
And I love being stupid. And I think you're a fucking asshole for not being as stupid as I am. So I'm going to make fun of you for not being stupid.
I mean, that's... You can take that all the way back to being in high school. And we were all in high school, late 80s, early 90s. And people were making fun of you for being... Well, for not being stupid like them. It existed then.
Right.
And it's just continued to get worse. And we're talking 30... But what I'm saying is we're talking 30, 40 years of this mentality of... You got to be stupid, and these people are coming out of high school and continuing to pass that down, just across the board.
Well, that's the problem, because it used to just be a high school thing, and then at some point, it continued.
Become a life thing.
It continued into adult life instead of you shedding it like a skin once you're out of high school and actually in the workplace. It's been encouraged even in adult society.
Right.
Instead of just shedding it.
Form. It's in a slightly different form.
Right.
Take no responsibility, do the bare minimum,
Exactly.
Blame somebody else,
Don't think for yourself.
Yep.
I mean, I've talked about it before, talking about customer service jobs that I used to have and retail jobs that I used to have and friends of mine had, where they just want you to read a script and be a robot. We've bred all of this into our society over the past generation or two, certainly over the last 20, 30 years at this point.
Dare I say inbred?
Well, that's where, when we talked about Trailer Park of the World, that's where it came from, because it's just because I also see, and you guys have probably seen it too, traveling overseas. My travels overseas, I see how they see us, and that's a real eye-opener. And I strongly recommend that any American citizen travel overseas and talk to people and see how little they think of you. See what, not even just the world really view, but see what their perception of us is.
It ain't good.
Of our society. Yeah, they love a lot of our pop culture.
Yeah, they love our money.
But they also realize that, for the most part, we're a bunch of fucking dummies. Mm-hmm. And they're not wrong. I can't argue with them.
Nope.
Listen, one of the worst things I ever had to do, and it pales in comparison now, but one of the biggest eye openers for me was that I traveled to Europe the day after George W. Bush was reelected, and I had some real eye opening conversations in Europe after that.
Yeah, and they thought that guy was bad.
That's what I'm saying. Now you look at it in comparison, and like that was a field day.
And this guy's dangerous.
Because now, and I've traveled to Europe since Trump was elected, and I've had some interesting conversations also, and it's even more so now because the perception is lower now than ever.
I haven't been to Europe in about 5 years, so I don't have the Trump perspective of Europe, but
yeah, well,
I went there just before he was elected.
They see us, and they know it's not. I'm
it's
using
not us as in
collective
us as in,
because they talk to me and they're cool. It's not like they're treating me like shit. And some of them are people that I've met before over the years. Because, like I said, the first time I went there was 2004. But there were Europeans that used to come here a lot. So there's people that I've been friends with for like 20 years plus that live over there. Mm-hmm. So I have some long-standing friendships with a bunch of people, and I know you do too.
Yeah, I got some.
So
shout out to May.
Yeah, May is a great example. But they see us as a society as just a bunch of fucking dopes, and they're not wrong.
Nope.
They're not wrong. And they know I've had conversations about this stuff at length, and they fully acknowledge they know we're not all like that, but the general perception of America
it's not a good one.
Is not good at all. And it was like that before Trump, and Trump did us no favors whatsoever. So I really wonder, talking about predictions for the new year, Joe Biden is in a terrible spot.
Yes.
And I said this about Obama when he got elected, and it was nothing compared to what Joe Biden has to deal with now.
Nope.
When Obama got elected, everybody was talking all this hope shit, and I said no matter what Obama does, they're going to shit on him. They're going to shit on him, and I was right. And the reason I said they were going to shit on him is because no matter what and I wasn't even thinking about like control of the Senate or whatever, any of that stuff, just the stuff that had gone on leading up to his presidency. I said everybody's talking this hope shit, but there's no way that he's going to undo all the years of fucking shit that had happened before him. And it's just continued. It's rolled downhill even more since then because we've talked about, I've made my feelings known about deregulation and how that has caused a downward spiral when it comes to all the corporate control of everything nowadays. And
same thing with the taxes.
Right. Well, they're talking about, Trump's tax breaks and things like that. Tax breaks?
That was a $3 trillion tack onto the debt for the American people.
Right.
So that was a throwaway. That did nobody a lick of good.
Right, but they're
0.1%.
But they're worried about sending people checks,
I know.
But that's why it's all a lot of goofball shit. But Biden, bottom line, is in a terrible spot.
Yep.
Because no matter what he does, it's not going to be perceived as enough.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows how it's all going to turn out. I don't think he's going to get much accomplished. Certainly not enough in most people's eyes. And whether that paints him as a failure in history or not, that's another story. But I think it's going to be a big, huge mess. And, talking about Obama, that was one thing. But nobody has done more damage to the basic structure of the United States of America than Donald Trump.
I don't think anybody can argue with that.
So no matter what Biden does, he's not going to be able to undo all of that. And I think, I've said it before, and I firmly believe it, I think we have barely scratched the surface of just how much damage he has really done. And I think it's going to be years before we learn the full extent of it.
Oh, without a doubt.
When it comes to our international standing, with all these treaties and agreements and all these things, Biden's going to want to go and repair those relationships, and he might not be able to do that. And on a side note, just to finish my thought with this, and then let you guys continue as far as predictions and stuff, I have a theory also, because Trump, one of his big hand jobs was all this stuff with the Middle East and peace treaties in the Middle East and stuff. I really wonder, and I've floated this theory before, if there was some sort of secret money involved there.
Oh, most certainly.
And how him not being there anymore is going to affect all of that. Because it seemed very convenient that he was able to pull that deal off. And if you know anything about those countries, the only thing they give a fuck about is money.
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 Follow the money. Who
Right.
does it benefit?
So if there were deals going on like that, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if there was some sort of paper involved there.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's still in these countries' best interest to not work with the United States, even if they got some payoffs.
That's true, but what happens when those payoffs aren't there anymore? Like, who knows?
I think the payoffs are coming the other way. I think the payoffs were coming from Saudi Arabia and Qatar and the UAE to Donald Trump.
But what would the benefit be?
For them?
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just hadn't thought of it that way, and I wonder.
Favorable trade.
Okay.
More oil money flowing their way that we're going to buy.
But that brings me back to my initial thought, which is what happens when they don't have that anymore?
Yeah, we're still one of the number one consumers on the globe for their oil.
Right, but if there was a deal involving them putting money in to get favorable treatment, and now they're no longer getting that favorable treatment.
Yeah, they still need to sell their oil.
True.
And they still need our protection from our Navy patrolling the Gulf.
But they might be a little salty about other things.
They might. They'll get over it.
Well, we'll see.
We shall see.
I just thought that whole deal was very strange.
Yep.
And I wonder what the truth was behind it and where it will leave us once Trump is out.
I don't know. I think we're going to be fucked from the jump. We're already so far down the spiral. But the problem is, it's a spiral and we don't see all the shit because it all looks the same as we're going down.
Right.
It all just looks like a big spin. But when we hit the bottom, it's going to be fucking ugly.
I agree. What else?
I don't think we're going to hit the bottom.
You don't think so?
No, I don't. I don't think.
You believe that Biden will pull us out of this? Well, not Biden, but like his ability to pull some relationships back together.
I do think that he will be able to come in, and he's not going to be able to fix it on day one. But I think the fact that he was a VP and for 8 years, and he served with Obama, and it was his good relationships around the globe. I think that we have some rough waters ahead, but I don't think this is going to completely cave in on itself. I think he can steady the ship. I think we got a lot of work ahead of us, and I think there's a lot of mess to clean up. And like Gary said, there's a lot of things that have been fucked up that we don't even know they're fucked up yet. But I think that we are still the strongest geopolitical power on the globe, with the biggest economy, with the biggest army, with the biggest, GDP, and that will allow us to steady the ship on the world stage. It might take a couple of years to rebuild some of these relationships, but I don't think we're gonna turn into a smoldering wreckage. I think this country's been here for 200 plus years, and we've already taken a step back. I don't know how we would have dealt with another 4 more years of Trump, but I think that maybe the 4 was enough, and that we're going to pay for that, but I don't think it's going to be terminal. I think we'll survive.
I think the biggest problem that we're going to have is not internationally, it's going to be domestically.
I can see that.
And it goes back to a lot of the COVID stuff.
COVID, the Trumpers, people that still believe in him. I think we have a lot of hard things that are going on here, internal issues.
Definitely, but I think the continued issues with the financial class war are going to be our biggest problem. And I think that as long as the government continues to be controlled by corporate money, it's only going to get worse. And I don't see any way out of it.
I don't see any way out of that either. I don't see any immediate change on the horizon.
Because I think the poor are just going to get more poor, and I think COVID is really
going to accelerated
that a lot. And I think Biden is going to be hesitant to make certain moves, like rent forgiveness. There's a lot of things that are going to end up costing the country a lot of money. And I think between Biden and if we continue to have a Republican Senate and House, it's going to get messy, and I think there's going to be a lot more issues because in the end, the poor people are going to continue to be poor and get more poor, and there's no end in sight for any of that, and that plays into race issues also. I don't think Biden is really going to change any of that. And
I don't think he can.
It goes back to a question of, and I know, Andy, you've been open about your feelings on it, but it goes back to the question of, is this system sustainable? And I'm not sure that it is, and it may not be in 4 years, it may not be in 8 years, but I think eventually this thing is going to hit a wall if it continues as is. That the corporate control is going to run this thing into the ground unless something changes. What is that change? I don't know.
No, I don't know either. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I think in the short term, I think the status quo will hold. I think we'll be fine for the next 4, 6, 8 years. But could this completely blow up on itself? Sure.
Well, I think the worst is yet to come because, as we've discussed on here many times, the small business apocalypse is looming.
Oh, bro, it is coming.
And it just keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed because my original prediction was that it would hit by the end of the summer.
And my prediction was December.
Right.
And we are right up against that. And they pushed it out a whole nother month, but that's not going to save anybody.
That's a Band-Aid on a bullet hole.
Exactly.
No. You know, the anchor and backbone of the U.S. economy is small business. And, I think that the full extent of the damage to the small business structure in this country will not be completely known until we are probably 6 months clear of COVID. And
certainly.
And like I said, I mean, and it comes from your small independent businesses to your mom and pops to your local restaurants. You know, I think after we get out of this, I think a lot of these places aren't coming back, and all that money that's going to fall out of the economy and all those jobs that are going to be gone and all those small businesses that are going to be, you know, what's going to happen to those people? And I don't think we know yet, but I think there's another. We're in for this is not going away anytime soon.
Absolutely not.
It's like we said before about it being a house of cards and everything affecting everything else. What a lot of people don't take into account is that you take these small businesses out of the equation, that also takes their tax money out of the equation.
Sure.
Besides their employees taking rent money out of the equation.
Sure.
Because they can't work, they can't pay rent. That's an apocalypse in itself, but also it's not just going to affect them at the lower level. It's going to be felt at the higher levels too, because that tax revenue is not going to come in.
No.
The money for licenses and things like that isn't going to come in.
Because the big corporations don't pay taxes. We know that.
Right.
Well, we've been over that 100 times.
Yep.
And not just on our show, but everybody should know that at this point.
Yeah. They don't pay taxes, so that's not. So, you know, they're not depending on the taxes. They can still continue to employ people, but it's all that middle level, those places that employ from your sole proprietorships all the way up to like 100 people.
Right.
You know, when all those businesses fail or fall out, there isn't enough rescue money, no matter how many packages they have, to save all those businesses.
Right.
It's not there.
Well, that's the problem.
But they don't want to save those businesses.
I think there's some of that too.
Well, that goes back to the corporate thing, because as long as they're controlled by corporate interests, they don't give a fuck. And some of them may hide it well, some of them may be open about it, but in the end, the vast majority of the people in government on the federal level really don't give a shit about small business
At all.
And they're not thinking big picture, or they think it'll somehow right itself.
Nope.
And that may not be the case. Because look, this stimulus deal that they're talking about, this COVID deal, doesn't have anything for state and local governments.
Nope.
We still haven't addressed that yet.
Nope.
And
it reminded me of a really, really bad movie, but the quote was profound in Demolition Man, when I'm sure you've seen it whether you wanted to or not.
Yes.
And when Sylvester Stallone comes out of his coma, and he asks about, you know, he's like, I'm hungry or whatever, and he's like, oh good, we can go to Taco Bell. And Sandra Bullock is like, well, all restaurants are Taco Bell.
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay, you know, it's like, wait a second, well, what is that what the future is going to be like? You know, there's going to be one gas station, there's going to be one drugstore, there's going to be, you know,
welcome to Costco. I love you.
I love you. You beat me to it. I was about to spit that out.
Yeah, I mean,
well, that's that.
You go to
but that's
Costco, and they got everybody else under their wing in that movie. You can get your Starbucks. you know, you get a little bit of everything in there.
See, but that's why that movie is so scary, because we're getting closer and closer to that.
Mm-hmm.
To that dystopian world.
Yeah. Yep. And I've read and watched. I'm open about the fact that I consume, and have always consumed in my life, a massive amount of science fiction. And that's one of those things that is kind of a trope in a lot of science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
That the future is just all corporate owned.
No, it also involves that like dystopian collapse.
Right.
You know, of
well,
some societal norm.
Some of them do that, some of them don't. Right. I always go back to a book that I grabbed when I was working at a bookstore, and I still own it, and it's a book called Jennifer Government. And part of the story of the book, the main character is Jennifer Government because you take the last name. Everything is corporate sponsored. Mm-hmm. So you take the last name. If you're in school, company sponsors the school, so your last name is the name of the company. So, like, you'd be Andrew Pepsi.
Nice.
And then when you go to work, the reason why she's Jennifer Government is because her name is Jennifer and she works for the government.
Wait, which movie is this?
It's not a movie, it's a book.
Oh, it's a book, okay.
Yeah. So, and it's, like I said, it's one of those classic science fiction tropes that goes through, but we're not that far from that either. How many companies are sponsoring schools at this point? How far are we away from that?
Not that far.
And everything was everything was owned by some big corporation. The schools were, like I said, kid's last name was Pepsi because this Pepsi sponsored the school. And how far are we away from something like that? But as we continue with corporate control of everything, we're getting like that. Seemed like some crazy whacked out science fiction shit, but we're not that far from it now.
We're right up against it.
Yeah. And while it seemed silly when I got that book, almost 20 years ago, now you look at it and it's like, yeah, I could see that happening in 5 years. Could very easily see it happen. Beyond COVID, what else do you guys see next year?
I'm going to call that Biden will step down by the end of the year.
Really? That quickly?
So.
You think he's going to crap out that quick?
Yep. And this is a left field statement. So I'm not putting a huge amount of money on this, but I fear that he's sicker than we think he is, and that he's even able to admit. But they've been pumping him full to get him over the hump.
Right.
And I feel like they've been prepping Kamala to step in.
I don't necessarily know if that's a bad thing.
I don't know if it's a bad thing. I don't know if it's a good thing, but that's my prediction for this year.
You know what? I would give you no less than 5% chance of that being correct. I don't think that's like 101 shot. I don't think it's ridiculous.
I would have given it 2 years. I wouldn't have gone that soon.
Yeah, I don't think a year, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't finish the term.
Oh, no, I don't expect him to finish.
Or if he just decided to not run for re-election.
Oh, that's
if we're talking about that, he's definitely not running for a re-election.
No way. I don't. That I definitely don't see happening. But I don't think he'll make the full term. But I also
they
think
ever even intended for him to make the full term. They needed him. He was a pawn to beat Trump. They were afraid that anyone else wouldn't have enough traction because of the lack of deep-seated Democratic roots, that they needed somebody that they could just depend on to bring those votes through the door.
I disagree with that only because I think he was a pawn not to beat Trump, but to
avoid a Bernie, to
avoid a Bernie, because in the end, he's just another corporate shill. And it goes back to what we were talking about with the progressives, that they'll never give a progressive the ball.
Well, I don't think they're ever going to give the progressives a ball, because I don't think a progressive can win the middle of the country.
That's questionable, but I think they're not concerned about that. I think they're more concerned about protecting their money and their donors.
I think both of their interests align. I think a progressive can win a state house. I think a progressive can win a Senate seat, a congressional seat in certain places. I just don't think there's the stomach for a true progressive.
I think, and I said this about Bernie, I think they could if the party got fully behind them, but they're never going to do that.
Yeah, see, I don't think it's the fear of the party. I think it's the fear of the mushy middle. And those people that, all you have to do is hang the word socialism on Bernie Sanders and he can't win an election.
Well, that's the real question, because they always use that keyword to scare people.
Well, and it works, unfortunately.
Meanwhile, they live in a socialist society.
Exactly.
That's true.
You're already in it.
It's not socialism that's the problem. It's what people perceive socialism to be, when they don't even realize they're already living it.
Well, the other part of that, too, is that it's not just the Republicans using that keyword to scare people. The Democrats do it just as much.
Oh, I agree.
So they've already...
It's not a scary word to me.
Yeah,
to a lot of people, it is. Even to a lot of, more conservative Democrats, it's probably
right.
Scary.
Well, they've already poisoned that well.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
unfortunately,
that's part of the problem, and that would be the biggest issue if the Progressive Party were going to try to branch out and do their own thing. They would have to fight that keyword association.
Yeah. Look, I am as bleeding heart a liberal as you will find. If I take one of those quizzes, my liberal score will be like 97 out of 100. So like but I'm able to see the forest for the trees, and I understand that, sometimes you have to take, 75% of a Joe Biden when you're not going to get 90% of a Bernie Sanders.
Right.
And 75% of a Joe Biden is a hell of a lot better than 30% and the burning wreckage of Donald Trump or some other, bag of shit Republican who I just want nothing to do with. So
yeah.
So it's like, all right, well, let me cut my losses. If you put me in a vacuum and said, who would I have rather seen as president, Bernie Sanders or Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden? My answer would have been, in a vacuum, would have been Bernie Sanders. But I know practically Bernie Sanders couldn't have got elected. So I'll take Joe Biden instead of Donald Trump again, or, Marco Rubio, or whatever other, like I said, flaming bag of shit that the Republicans could kick out.
Well, that also feeds into what I was saying earlier about whether this whole thing is sustainable, because the needs of the big cities are so vastly different from the people out there that there's just no middle ground anymore.
Well, the problem is that what we need to do is we need to get rid of the Electoral College.
Well, that's yeah.
Because the Republican Senate is basically 30% of the country, 30% of the population, whereas 70% of the population only gets 50% of the representation in the blue states, whereas you have states like, Wyoming and Montana and Nevada, and they get the same amount of votes in the Senate as New York and New Jersey do, and California. Right. So as long as there's that imbalance in the Electoral College and in the Senate, we're going to have these problems.
Yeah, but you and I both know that there are a lot of people that want it that way.
I agree.
Because it suits them. And that's part of the problem, but there's no solution.
No, because you have, like I said, you have a minority of the populace that controls the Senate.
Right.
And they're not going to give that up.
Right. But that's why I said I don't know if it's sustainable, because it's diverging more and more, and I don't know how you rectify that. Because
I don't know.
nobody's ever going to do away with the Electoral College because it suits their purposes. So
because each state has a floor for the amount of electors they have.
Right.
No matter how small their population is, no matter how small they are, they always have a minimum of 3 delegates. No matter how small the state is. So there's an imbalance that we certainly aren't going to fix tonight.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we are going to fix anything.
Yeah.
No, we're definitely not going to fix anything. But
you know what? Just to put a fucking bow on this motherfucker, I would trust the 3 of us to get in the goddamn room more than most of these goddamn people that are in there.
I mean, we've already proven that we can see a lot of shit before some of these people that get paid to see shit.
They can't see shit.
They can't see a goddamn thing. I mean, our track record at this point kind of speaks for itself, honestly.
Yeah, I know, right?
Not to pat myself on the back again. But
get that Barry Horowitz going, baby.
Listen, we deserve a little bit of credit because some of these things that we talked about months ago, suddenly CNN is talking about every day. It's like, were you people not paying attention?
Nope.
They clearly weren't listening to us.
No,
I know, right?
Definitely not.
But then again, if they had been listening to us, they would have called us crazy.
That's true.
And they still would have aped our shit 6 months later.
Well, that's how it works.
Yeah. But we are seeing things for what they are, really. Because I don't know about you guys, but I don't consider myself a fucking genius by any stretch of the imagination.
Nope.
I think we're just paying attention.
Call me crazy, but down here...
Lost you.
We lost them.
Well,
I guess we'll just have to call them crazy.
I mean, I went on record as saying that I thought that Trump was going to win. And for all intents and purposes, it was looking that way for a long portion of that election until they got into counting those mail-in votes.
Yep.
He was doing pretty well. And it was looking tight.
And that was the harebrained scheme because he thought that he could just do away with the mail-in votes.
Yep.
And it didn't work out.
Didn't work out.
Typical.
But this whole year,
he didn't realize that those machines were Acme machines. those mail sorting machines were Acme machines.
Yeah. Anyhow, this year was unexpected. Starting this podcast was unexpected.
That's certainly true.
I mean, I know we had talked about doing it, but
that was some weird shit.
Welcome back.
Skype just said
that's the deep state.
Yeah,
they were sick of us
holding the man down.
We were just talking about how we've been doing this for. We started actually doing episodes in April or early May, but we didn't get into a good rhythm with each other and as well with guests, etc. until late May, early June, and you were our first guest. It's been a really fucking interesting 2020, just right off the rip because it's 2020, but also just running this show. And talking to people, laying our concepts on the line about how we feel the world is trending one way or the other, specifically our portion of the world, the U.S. And I'm interested to see where we end up in 2021. We have a couple interesting predictions. We might have to put them on paper, put them out there.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go back and review this eventually.
Yeah, just to make sure that we are on record. Somewhere visible that when this shit starts happening, we can go, look, we said this motherfucker 6 months ago and y'all weren't listening. Do you want to listen now? So.
Well, listen, that's pretty much what we were doing tonight.
Yep.
We said this shit 6 months ago.
So, I just want to thank you, Andy, for jumping on here again with us and spending a couple hours.
Hold on a second. Andy, you were going to say something. You said, call me crazy. And then you dropped out, so we were like, we just call him crazy.
Yeah, we'll just call him.
Well, what were you going to say?
I don't know. I don't remember. I started scrambling when Skype crashed, and I was like, right out the head.
God damn it. See, the government's taking everything away from us.
Pretty much. They're making me stupid.
I don't think it's the government that's doing that, bro.
Too much radiation, or I don't know.
It's 5G, buddy. It's 5G.
Yep.
Yeah, it's right.
5G. It's get yourself an RV.
Oh, God.
Look, man, I've been in
too soon?
Dark jokes. Hey, he's the only one that so far has died from it, so we can make as many jokes as we want at this point.
Yeah. Listen, a couple people got hurt, but they're not too bad.
They'll be all right. They're going to be all right.
I mean, the guy wasn't trying to hurt anybody. He's got big announcements going on. That fucking downtown song blasting.
Man, he had a pretty wicked mullet in one of the pictures I saw of him.
That's true. Well,
I'm telling you right now,
he had a mullet and a booming system.
If somebody pulled an RV up outside my house and that motherfucker was saying evacuate, you know what my ass would do? Evacuate. I'd be gone. That blast would have blown my house up, and I would have known nothing, and all I would have done was put in the insurance claim, because there is no way I'm just going to stand there and watch the motherfucker blow up.
And this motherfucker just parked that shit right in the middle of the street. He didn't park it by the curb or nothing. He just parked it in the middle of the street.
You had to know something was up. Like, what are you doing? Get out of there.
Did you die? Did you have a seizure? You got CO2 poisoning or something? What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Where's the cop that says, move that fucking thing out of the middle of the road, you know?
It's crazy.
I don't know.
Whole thing is nuts.
Well,
but Andy, thank you for coming on.
Yep.
It's always interesting and informative when all three of us are in conversation.
Anytime.
Just shooting the shit.
And also, fuck 2020.
Yeah, we can officially cast this bitch into the fucking ocean.
I'll go on record.
Yep.
Be nice to be able to leave my house one day.
One day. Don't get your hopes up yet, but
well, yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to get my hopes, like, it'd be nice to actually go and play a show with my band, but that I'm not getting my hopes up for that.
Yeah, you ain't doing. I'm telling you right now, you ain't doing that in 2021.
No,
you might.
It's not.
You might jam a few more times, but you are not playing the show.
No reason to get out of your pajamas because you ain't going nowhere.
I was joking around in a group text that I can't wait for the Billy Club Sandwich Super Spreader 2021 tour.
There you go.
The Super Spreader tour.
Start coughing on people.
Oh, God.
Be the new Gigi Allen.
So
not
gross.
shitting on people. I'm just going up to the front of the stage and like, take that, motherfuckers.
Oh, man. You know, it's funny. There's something about doing this shit, and there's something about doing this shit, like, live. And like I said, that's the one thing that I miss so terribly is
sitting in the room.
Sitting in the studio, like, doing this for real. Because, like I said, I just, I'll be back here. I'll be back on Thursday doing this again. It's different time, different place. But, yeah.
I mean, we'll have to do that again eventually. Len and I did that once.
Yeah, you'll have to come up and do one with us, because we did one from Landmine. The machine blew up on me and I lost the files. So, but that was my issue, not anybody else's.
Yeah.
Well, I thought we just agreed to blame John Wren.
I mean, it is John Wren's fault, so it is what it is.
Yeah, so.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll have to do another. We'll have to do another live episode one of these days. We'll definitely try to make that happen.
And we'll have to get some cheesesteaks.
Yeah, that will be a must. I have to.
Andy, I did actually take Gary to get cheesesteaks, but this motherfucker got a chicken cheesesteak.
Excuse me? Como?
I will tell you the
Actually,
the chicken,
you know what? I've never had a
chicken
chicken cheesesteak at Steve's.
I have. I have had it a number of times.
Yep.
But the way I order it, he would never order it because he doesn't fuck with bacon. But the chicken cheesesteak with bacon is to die for. It's pretty fucking delicious.
I don't know.
See, the pig has been good to me, so you know yeah.
That chicken cheesesteak I got was fucking slamming.
No, it's on point.
That shit
all
was
the way.
Very
I'm
much.
just saying,
on
like,
point.
I normally would not get one when I go there. I normally will get just a regular cheesesteak, but I have gotten a chicken cheesesteak, and it is delicious.
What are you gonna play us out? What's going on?
Just
Jesus Christ.
Fucking around.
Yep.
All right. Fuck 2020. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Upgrade Podcast. And thanks for this, I guess, is kind of our 6-month anniversary at this point, huh?
Yeah.
We started.
Does it?
I mean, we recorded at the beginning of June and then dropped it, a week and a half later or something? So
Something
middle
like
of
that.
June. So it's sort of our 6-month anniversary. So thanks for supporting us for the past 6 months. And, you know, maybe we'll make it another 6 months unless the Civil War happens.
Oh God, please.
I just realized this is my last broadcast in 2020.
Yep.
I don't have a show on New Year's Eve, so yep. Didn't have a show Christmas and don't have a show New Year's Eve, so
This is it. We're carrying you out.
Yep.
This is it, man.
Well, thanks
people
again.
out there, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. TheUpgradePodcast.net for all the links and stuff. And yes, we're still on Pandora, and I still forgot to make a graphic for that too. It might just be a running joke at this point. Yeah, Pandora graphic is coming a year later. Thanks, guys. We will see you in 2021. Peace.
Been a pleasure.
Be good to each other.